Welcome everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde aux séances ordinaires de la Ville de Westmount pour le 8 septembre 2025. Welcome everybody to the regular council meeting for the City of Westmount, September 8th, 2025. We have lots of updates and announcements today, but I'm going to address one of the main issues, which I think is why many of you are here in the room tonight. As you may have seen in our recent publications, the vote on the adoption of the Special Planning Program, SPP, or PPU as we call it, for the Southeast sector has been rescheduled to Thursday, September 18th at 6 p.m. during a special meeting of City Council. This process began about 2 years ago, and it's involved listening carefully to many voices within our community. And this is an issue that has been discussed for my entire 12 years that I've been on council. Our goal has always been to ensure that the plan reflects the broadest possible consensus among residents, stakeholders, and decision makers. Postponing this vote until September 18th is one of these reasons and further proof of this commitment. It allows us time to integrate some adjustments and technical refinements so that the vision can respond to some key concerns, while remaining coherent and forward-looking. For example, one of those changes is lowering the building heights on Dorchester, on the public lots, on what we call the Tupper lots. It will be 6 stories, so 3 stories with a setback and an additional 3 stories. This council will also recommend, as a recommendation truly to the next council, is to make sure that to incorporate a design competition for the land owned by the city, which is something that we have talked about a lot on this council and something that Councillor Aronson may want to elaborate on further. We continue to listen and incorporate ideas and suggestions wherever possible, but consensus does not mean unanimity. Citizens, elected officials, and stakeholders may have differing priorities here. To delay this indefinitely until everyone agrees would be to deny this diversity, which is part of democratic life. While some residents have called for more time, even after 2 years, we cannot allow that result to make decision-making paralysis. This is why we remain committed to presenting the SPP for a vote on September 18th, and Council will vote on whether or not to move forward. It is important to remember that the SPP is not a construction project. It is a vision. It's a collective vision shaped not only by urban planning experts, but above all by contributions from the community through public workshops, committees, consultations, and open discussions. It's also a vision grounded in lessons from the past. The current state of the sector has clearly shown us that the current zoning will not revitalize the area. It takes more height. It takes more density. The question before us is simple. Do we continue to wait, or do we take the first step by setting clear parameters that will allow the next administration to move forward? We do not want to repeat past mistakes, and this plan represents an opportunity to breathe new life into this part of our city. Let me be clear. No one wants the Southeast to turn into an uncontrollable urban jungle. This will not be another Griffintown. Adding more green spaces to this sector is part of the plan. Of the 14,500 square meters of public land to be redeveloped or developed in the sector, half will become green space, equivalent to nearly 1.5 times the size of Stainer Park. And that figure does not include the private green spaces at ground level or the rooftops on new buildings. Yes, the SPP will allow for new construction. However, nothing proposed in terms of size or scale exceeds what is already in the immediate neighborhood and across our city. As always, any new project will require council approval, ensuring compliance with our rules on architectural integration and heritage protection. This approach will allow us to expand housing options for our community so that our children, grandparents, and future generations continue to live and thrive here. The Southeast deserves to become more attractive, greener, and more vibrant. Let's allow the parameters to be set so the next council can truly begin the next phase and the work that is ahead of it. So, I think everybody may have some comments on this, so I will start with Councillor Kez at that end of the room.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be talking about this, voting on this on the 18th. I think I've made my stance clear. I represent residents of District 8. Maybe not, I mean, there's differing views. Everyone can agree that they want a plan to move forward. It can't stay in the state it is. However, everyone knows I am in favor of moving forward with a plan, But I don't think this plan has matured. It's not about shutting down this plan, but I don't believe fundamentally it has matured to become the best it can be. I also believe it's not another year or 2 or 3. I think we're almost there. So without going into further detail, I would like to postpone the plan. But that doesn't mean I don't want a plan or that I can live with this as is. That's not a question. But this has been an issue going on, but I have other points I'd like to discuss, something to do with public security. So I'm just going off. It's back to school time, so I want to ensure a smooth and safe return to classes. So I encourage everyone to give extra consideration to the safety rules and recommendations. Please don't double park. This will block the visibility of children. Don't allow children to exit a vehicle that is double stopped. It could be dangerous. Always pull to the curb when dropping them off. Don't unload children across the street from a school. Park a block away if you can and walk with your children. There's many, we have a website. There's many tips online, and as in previous years, public safety officers will patrol the school drop-off areas during peak traffic times to ensure safety of all roads users. The city has also recently implemented new traffic calming measures in signage near schools to address concerns raised in recent survey on school zone safety. And that's my commissionership update, and I'll see you, most of you, I guess, on the 18th of September.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Councillor Aronson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a couple of updates and things unrelated to the PPU, and I'll give my comments with respect to the PPU at the end of this report. So as my esteemed colleague had mentioned, we are obviously also very busy doing all of the other things that we're responsible for and that the city administration works hard on while working on the special planning project. And some of the good news I'd like to bring forward tonight is that after a year of hard work tonight, our Environmental and Sustainability Committee's advisory committee's recommendations, which have been reviewed by my fellow councillors and given a thumbs up on their breadth and content, are being tabled tonight for us all to be able to have a look at. This is the culmination of a year of hard work by the committee, and we're very proud of what we were able to produce. But as I say in the foreword, which you'll all be able to read, this is the starting line, not the finish line. These recommendations are intended to be a start for an ongoing effort by future councils and the administration and our community to continually improve the sustainability and climate adaptation in an environmentally friendly way of this city. So I understand that the report will be made public, and when it is, I invite you all to have a read of it, and I hope that you'll be satisfied with the work the committee has done thus far, and that it inspires further efforts and ideas, which we, of course, will welcome in the next term. Whoever is sitting up at these seats, I hope will be open to even more suggestions and recommendations to continually improve our city, as the ones we put forward now are, with a little bit of elbow grease, implemented. To that end, we've got a little bit of feedback. I believe official information is going to come forth through our communications department, but I got a little bit of good news with respect to data on the waste pickup changes that were made last year, and our preliminary data to be released with a full assessment shortly, indicates that in the year since the change to our landfill pickup schedule, we're looking at almost a 10% reduction of the amount of waste going to landfills. And at the same time, about 11% increase in the amount of compost going into our compost program. The number of trips by truck to the landfills have been cut by approximately 1,200. And as a result, we've saved about 3 tons of greenhouse gases that would otherwise go into the air while schlepping garbage to a landfill where it would sit and poison the land indefinitely. So this is a good start. We hope that the changes that we implemented last year will continue in the same direction, and that we'll see further reductions in the amount of garbage going into landfills, and more recycling and more compost going to places that are beneficial to our environment and our community. And finally, on a different note, I want to just congratulate the Merchants Association of Victoria Village for a wonderful festival held this past weekend. Speaking of resilience and bouncing back from climate, the Merchants Association unfortunately was rained out on Saturday, and the event had to be postponed, but it was held the very next day and was a great success. So thank you very, very much to all the merchants who participated, all the artists who came out to share their wonderful artistic products, the acts that performed, and of course, all the families that came down to participate. So, and of course, the director of the Merchants Association, former Councillor Lulham, was instrumental in putting all of that together, as she is all of these festivals. So thank you very much to her as well. And then turning now to, of course, the question concerning that everyone's here to talk about, our special planning project. This has been a really difficult topic, a divisive topic in our community. People are getting very, very upset about the possibility that we might change some of the maximum allowances that an owner of a property could ask for if they decide to redevelop, revitalize, or build something in a small section of the city. And I understand that people are feeling very passionate both ways about it. There are many residents who have said to me that they are very worried that this will change the character of the city of Westmount forever. And others who have said they're extremely worried that if nothing is done soon, the condition of the area will worsen to a point many of us don't feel comfortable or safe allowing our children to go there at all. Some feel as though if we don't take some steps soon, and I think there's something to be said about this, we are sort of abandoning a chunk of our city to become a really dangerous, neglected, rundown area, even worse than it is now, if one can imagine. With that in mind, at this point, I'm strongly in favor of moving forward with doing something. We've spent almost 2 years consulting, discussing, thinking, talking with experts, making sure we double-check the ideas that we are putting forward and that we are integrating from the community. And some themes keep emerging, one of which is that everyone agrees something must be done. Another is I hear a lot from people who are very concerned about the affordability and accessibility of housing in our community. I did a little bit of research in July, trying to figure out if I were to move here to Westmount, if any of us were to move here to Westmount, being exactly the same profile of our own households, same average incomes, same property values, same rents, and same availability of what's in the market today, how many of us who weren't already here could afford to move into the housing we already have? And my back-of-the-envelope research was a bit startling. It seemed that somewhere around 40% of the residents of the city right here, right now, today, couldn't afford to come in and become our neighbors if they weren't already here. For many of us, our houses are rented. Our homes are owned by someone else. And if something were to happen to that housing, if a landlord decides that it's time to renovate and you need to leave, many of our families and many of our seniors will not have another option to remain in this community and will have to leave. Because the simple fact of the matter is the vacancy rate is extremely low and the rents are extremely high. Adding more stock to the housing available to the city will help ameliorate that problem. And so too would be looking at options to create affordable and attainable housing in a non-market scenario. We already, as a community, we already own unbuilt plots of land. Plots of land that we as a community can decide to develop and make available to folks who are already in Westmount but need to downsize or need a new place to be, or those that we would like to welcome to our community. Right now, they are surface parking lots. There is no need for us to sell off those lots for a developer to develop. We, as a community, can decide to do it ourselves for ourselves. And I would hope that if the PPU passes, The zoning is reset to allow for something that can welcome more people into our community or give seniors or families more options within the community they've been born into, raised into, or have lived their whole lives, that we as a community would decide to seize that opportunity and move forward with it. But that can't happen if the maximum buildable height is 0, if it's a parking lot. We've got to do something. And so, I had a professor in law school who said to us, speaking of exams, what you can think of is not as important as what you can think of in time. We set an 18-month deadline to figure this out. And we have a responsibility as elected officials to complete our work. We were put here by our residents to make sound decisions. And regardless of where any of us at the table sit in terms of the final vote, I am confident that all of us are going to do what we think individually is best for our community as a whole. And so to that end, at this point, I look forward to seeing all of you on September 18th, and it is my intention on that night to vote in favor of passing the PPU. And if and when in the future it becomes clear that something needs to be tweaked or changed, I will hope very much to be here at the table to help. And I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that if we have the opportunity to bring better, non-market, affordable, and attainable housing to the residents, present and future of this city, I will be fighting that fight. So thank you very much for letting me go on
Thank you,
quite a bit.
Councillor Aronson.
And of that, Madam Mayor, I will yield the floor.
Councillor Gallery, an update from you.
Yes, thank you, Madame Mayor. Bonsoir, bienvenue tout le monde. I have a few updates I'd like to share. First of all, as most of you know, our pool closed this past September 1st. I'd like to thank very much the lifeguards for another exceptional summer and keeping everyone safe, and of course the sports and rec team for the great swimming programs they provide and the tournaments that we host throughout the summer. I'd also like to congratulate the Westmount Dolphins Aquatic Club. They won top prize in the August 16th finals of the 21-member association of the Lakeshore Pools. They took home the John Pratt Swimming Finals trophy for the 2nd consecutive year. Additionally, they won the trophy for the 10 and under age category. And just a reminder that this is a volunteer-run program, and they do a tremendous amount for the families in our city, and it is so much appreciated, and they bring a great deal.
It's
the
a really
community.
big deal to
Yeah.
beat West Island Pools.
Yeah,
By the way.
big deal. I would also like to thank the Westmount Summer Camp counselors, the tennis attendants, the park controllers, and of course the Green Patrol team who promote eco-responsibility. These are mostly students and young people who are learning how our city works and contribute a great deal, a lot more than anybody can imagine. They're on the front lines and they give back all summer long. So thank you to them. And I don't know if many of you were there, but we had on August 29th, Friday afternoon, the inauguration of the Douglas Firstbrook Ellis Memorial Garden. This is located at the corner of St. Catherine and Lansdowne. So it was officially inaugurated on that date and is now open to the public. But I'd just like you all to know that this garden is intended to be a place of remembrance and reflection, making a significant step in the collective recognition and healing process as a result of sexual abuse that took place in Westmount in the 1980s. It was extremely well attended. It was a very meaningful ceremony, and it truly thanks to all involved, and especially Mayor Smith for moving this forward and doing our part in a very respectful, honorable way. Thank you. I do have some comments regarding the PPU. I would like to begin with a bit of clarification on the process of exemption. So please allow me, I've prepared some remarks. So I'm going to start with the Plan Métropolitain d'Aménagement et de Développement, the PMAD. This is up for a lot of discussion lately. This is the Metropolitan Land Use and Development Plan adopted by the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal, CMM. It sets the rules for how land must be planned and developed across the Greater Montreal. It has two main objectives. The first, protecting and enhancing true heritage sites. The second, encouraging densification, especially on vacant or underused lots near public transit. That distinction matters. Vacant land and surface parking are not heritage. On the contrary, PAIMED requires municipalities to transform them into housing or mixed-use projects. Exemption only applies to genuine heritage buildings, like a church or a historic house, where density physically cannot be added. This is why calls to pause or ask for a delay for a PAIMED exemption are unrealistic. There is no clear legal process, no precedent that fits our situation, and no guarantees of success. Only guarantees of delay, cost, and risk. Other cities that have tried this, they resist to delay the compliance, they have failed. Courts have even called some of their tactics in bad faith. The law is clear. The PAIMED sets the regional rules, the agglomeration or the AGLO plan must follow the PAIMED, and our PPU must follow both. If we fail, the CMM can rewrite our plan and bill us for it, or the minister can intervene, or the courts can compel us to act. Meanwhile, delay carries real risks: lawsuits, rising costs, and a loss of credibility with residents, partners, and higher levels of government. But the PPU is more than just legal compliance. It's an opportunity, an invitation to reimagine a part of our city that has been left behind for far too long. As we know, the southeast sector has experienced visible decline: vacant lots, underused buildings, disconnected streets, and even rising insecurity. If we do not act intentionally, that decline will continue. But if we act wisely and collaboratively, we can lay the groundwork for lasting renewal. The proposed PPU achieves the balance we need. It meets our densification obligations while creating a clear, balanced framework to attract the right kind of investment. It allows us to invest in the it allows us to invite the business community and developers to be part of the solution within the rules that reflect Westmount's character and values. And let me be clear, this does not mean turning our back on Westmount's heritage or unique character that we all love and protect. We are a heritage city, and we're very proud of it. Revitalization and heritage preservation are not opposites. Done well, new development can enhance our historic streetscapes rather than overshadow them. And let us remember, this framework does not cut a single tree, tear down a single house, or block a single resident's view. At present, under existing zoning, nothing is happening. Investors are not coming. Opportunities are passing us by. The PPU changes that. It gives us the tools to attract serious, responsible investment grounded in thoughtful design, human-scale density, and inclusive, sustainable neighborhoods. So the choice before us is clear. Chase an illusion of exemption, waste years, and watch decline continue, or adopt the PPU, the balanced, forward-looking framework that allows us to protect heritage, invite renewal, and shape the southeast sector with clarity and purpose. This is our moment to lead. I believe we are to not defer our responsibilities, and we must rise to them. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Madame Bostock, vous avez des commentaires?
Just some quick updates in terms of Public Works. You'll see that Sherbrooke Street is officially ready to go and quite beautiful, and it was a hard summer for everybody, but a beautiful result. We are, as always, and running around trying to fill all of our potholes. So you can go on to our website and report a pothole, but rest assured that our crews are out there working daily to get those taken care of. And that, you know, as we prepare for the fall, which I'm not really very happy about, but as we prepare for fall and winter, our Public Works crews are very busy preparing the city and getting us ready to ensure that we have a smooth transition of seasons. So I want to thank our Public Works Department for all the work that they do to keep our city beautiful and safe, and wish them a good winter and snow clearing season. So that's all I have.
Merci beaucoup. Conseiller Peart?
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse, and Councillor Bostock stole my thunder for my recognition of the great work accomplished on Sherbrooke. I'm sure many of you are happy. Some of you are probably speeding, and you shouldn't. It is the first of projected 3 phases for the length of Sherbrooke, and it was a large project. It was an invasive project, but all of the feedback that I've had has been very, very positive, not just on the end result, but also on the process. The contractors that were on the job were very helpful. I saw them walking seniors across the street. I saw them doing everything that they could do to make this process, I won't say it's painless, but as manageable as is possible. So to that, I applaud them for their work. It was very, very much appreciated by me, by the rest of council, and by many of our residents.
Yep.
Some other updates on some infrastructure projects across the city. As you've noticed, we've been busy. We are busy. We will continue to be busy. The Roslyn Steps, which is a project that has been on the boards for years, is finally underway. It is a large project, larger than we had originally anticipated, but it is underway. It'll be a phased project such that the work will continue through November, and then into the spring of 2026, the planting will start, and it'll be done for the middle of 26. But that'll be a very welcome change. It's been too long that one of the staircases has been completely inaccessible. The other staircase, a little treacherous, but now it will be restored and to its former glory. Also underway is one of our larger road projects at Forden Crescent, progressing very, very well. The contractors, again, similarly are very responsive to the residents and what they need. And that is on track to be done, if I'm looking at my dates right here, through October, the middle of October, and that is, we're looking for that to be wrapped up. Similarly, on Claremont, the project that was, let's just say, recalibrated earlier this year is underway. And so from the Claremont Triangle all the way down to Lorraine, that is underway. It's been progressing. It's been started for a month now and will continue through mid-November. Additionally, what we will talk about later today is the award of a contract for the repair and reconstruction of the sidewalks on the north side of St. Catherine Street between Wood and Atwater. Some works that have been long overdue, and we can't wait for, we just can't wait. Just the work needs to be done irrespective of what's going to happen in that sector. Similarly, another wrap up, the Green project. Green is not our project. I know it's right in the middle of our city, but it's not a project that is under our control. It's a Ville de Montréal project. They coordinated with us as best as they do, and maybe not as well as we would hope. But it's on its own schedule. It is progressing, and it is expected to be completed the first week of November. But that has been a very invasive project in the city. It cuts off one of our north-south axes, and it's become a challenge. But again, once done, we will be better equipped with some restored infrastructure. Throughout this summer and in recent weeks, there has been a constant effort to repair some sidewalks and some work in some intersections across the city. That work will continue into the fall. That is an ongoing program that we have across the city that we replicate every single year. The sidewalks are not second. They don't deserve. They're not. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but our sidewalks are important, and our streets are important too. But our sidewalks are important. And again, what many of you might not know, for the first time this year, for the first time in our history, this year we did in the same way that we check the quality of our streets, we're also checking the quality across the territory of our sidewalks. So we have a really data-intense report on the state and status of our sidewalks across the city, because it's an important factor. We are a walkable city, and for it to be walkable, it has to be safe. So that will probably wrap it up for my infrastructure report. And if you'll indulge me, some of you might, as my other councillors have, might be interested in where I stand on the PPU. So I'll give you a bit of a recap. And I ask you to picture Westmount 20 years from now. Will our children and grandchildren be able to afford to live here? Will our main streets be vibrant with local businesses, or will more storefronts sit empty? Will we have the tax base to maintain the parks, services, and infrastructure that make this community special? These aren't abstract questions. They are the real consequences of the choice we face with the Southeast Sector Special Planning Program. Today, I want to be straight with you about where we are, what I've learned from listening to you over the past months, and why I believe we must move forward carefully but decisively. Let's be honest, Westmount once had almost 30,000 residents. But in the last census, we lost hundreds of residents. And provincial forecasts show we could lose thousands more in the coming years. That means fewer people sharing the fixed cost of services like snow removal, road work, and infrastructure upkeep. At the same time, too much of our most valuable land sits idle. Surface parking lots and vacant buildings where there should be homes and businesses. Every year we delay action, we miss opportunities for the kind of development that could strengthen our future. Since June and before, I've heard you loud and clear. Most, if not all, residents support adding housing. But many also express concerns about the St. Catherine block. It's not just residents, but our local experts as well. Are there too many towers? Are they too close together? Will this plan really get built, or are we approving something that looks good on paper but fails in practice? My sense is your instincts are correct. With more research and discussions, I have come to share your concerns about St. Catherine block. In my opinion, we made an early mistake by accepting that fragmented property ownership as an unchangeable constraint. It need not be. Good planning should encourage and incentivize landowners to work together on coordinated projects on consolidated lots, not to lock us into cramped or awkward outcomes. At the same time, we must recognize this truth. Westmount needs a wide diversity of housing options. This is not foreign to our city. We already have mid-rises, apartments, and high-rise towers that are part of our urban fabric. Seniors live in Westmount Square, families live in apartments on Sherbrooke, and neighbors live in nearby condos. New residents would not be outsiders. They are Westmount. The real question isn't if we welcome new neighbors, it's how. Whether we create conditions for development that are viable, livable, attractive, and beneficial for the community. Now, part of this discomfort comes from how we've presented this. People understandably compare our proposals to the low-rise buildings we see today. But most of these sites have been zoned for much taller buildings since 2014. The real change in this PPU is much smaller than it appears. We're talking about incremental increases above what is already allowed, not dramatic leaps from what exists now. Now, when it comes to heritage, I strongly and unequivocally support preserving our built heritage. The homes, the institutions, the architectural gems that defined Westmount. But heritage designations are meant to protect what exists, not to freeze parking lots and underused parcels in amber. Some will argue for a heritage exemption to the PMAD requirements. However, it's worth repeating that the very same exceptional value status also applies to almost all of downtown Montreal, from Atwater to Blurry. We should focus our energy on defending what is truly irreplaceable in Westmount, rather than empty asphalt or barricaded storefronts that contribute nothing to the quality of life. So here we are. Council probably has three possible paths. Path number one, pause and refine. Hand this work off to the next council to strengthen before adoption. This will allow time to address the St. Catherine Street properly, but risk losing momentum and discouraging investment. Option number two, adopt and improve. Approve the framework now while committing to refinements, especially for the St. Catherine block. This signals that Westmount is serious about renewal while leaving room for necessary adjustments. Option number 3, reject and restart. Vote the plan down entirely and begin again from scratch. This would erase years of progress and return us to a status quo that everyone agrees is failing. Behind closed doors, I argued for a pause. If not for the looming election, I believe we would have taken the time needed to strengthen the plan and build more community buy-in. But I cannot convince enough of my colleagues to go that route. I tried. What I cannot support, however, is outright rejection. That would be devastating. Another decade of empty lots, declining population, and rising tax pressure on those who remain. That's why I support adopting the framework now, with a clear commitment to improving it. To me, it is a responsible middle path. Adoption maintains momentum and signals seriousness. Improvement ensures projects are realistic, attractive, and in keeping with our city's character. Specifically, the St. Catherine block must be revisited. Whether that means fewer towers, maybe taller towers, or smarter placement. But it's the only way this area will deliver on its promised potential. The bottom line is, we cannot afford illusions. Empty lots will not preserve our character. Endless delays will not attract better proposals. Rejection will not bring investment back. But thoughtful action can. Adopting this plan while committing to refinements gives us the best chance to welcome new neighbors, support our main streets, and sustain the services that make Westmount special. The Southeast sector has languished for far too long. It's time to unlock its potential and bring it back home. Thank you.
Merci, Conseiller Peart. Monsieur Chamy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to save my deep discussion for the 18th, as the Mayor said, but I will chime in, if I may. I agree with the Mayor's position tonight. And I think the most important thing, and I've talked about it many times, and I've met many residents going door to door in the community. I've received letters for, against the PPU, but I really believe deep in my soul, in my heart, that respect and understanding of each other's positions is so important. And sometimes in these discussions, Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, we lose the reality. It becomes so personal. It's me against you, you against me, and we need to park that. I think this is a major decision we're taking on the 18th of September. A lot has gone into it, but I really believe Councillor Peart's recommendation of adopt with a commitment to improve is fundamental, is vital to our community, and at this point, that is where I'm looking to support. But it's okay to dissent. Dissent is healthy. As long as we can respect one another, we can have a proper conversation, and what I really, really find difficult is how personal it has become. People saying misinformation, sending information that is incorrect, saying that we as council are putting out miscues. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, we must be clear, we must be thorough, and we must respect each other. At this point, I am voting in favor of the PPU. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Merci beaucoup. Councillor Roux.
Yes, this is probably now what you feel like hearing. I have a lot of announcements tonight. Although I
Make
won't.
it very long to ensure that maybe you question coming back on the 18th.
But I won't be talking to you about the PPU tonight. So back to my usual library to my library and events. So I'd like to start by thanking the team at the Children's Library for making sure that the Westmount kids were part of the TD Summer Reading Program again this year. It was very impressive. It was the closing party on Saturday. There were more than 300 participants, and together they read for more than 3,600 hours this summer. So when you see kids on their phones all the time, I think it's a great way to start them off and very encouraging. I suggested that their favorite books they might want to share with friends who don't read as much and get them going. So thank you for the team at the Children's Library. Then for adults, so 18 and over, there's a Maker Cafe, Tuesday, September 16th, and then Fridays, September 19th to 26th from 6 to 8 in the studio. So drop by Maker's Cafe, the studio's new adult-only drop-in times to work on your creative or tech projects and get advice from our facilitators. Coffee will be served. There's an author event with Ian Durag, Tuesday, September 16th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. So the editor of Blatant Injustice, the story of Jewish refugees interned in Canada during World War II, Ian Durag chronicles the harrowing experience of Jewish refugees from the Nazis who were deemed enemies and imprisoned in internment camps in Canada during the Second World War. Then for children from 8 to 12, there's the infrared camera shop, so that sounds really neat, on Wednesday, September 17th from 4 to 5 p.m. in the studio. So that will be with Dr. Jose Ramirez Garcia Luna, who's the MD, PhD. So learn how infrared technology works and what it's useful for in the medical field, then try out an infrared camera yourself. So of course, all the equipment will be provided. I know a lot of people in Westmount care about the environment, so there's an environment workshop on climate change. It will be bilingual on Tuesday, September 17th from 6 to 7 p.m. So the topic, climate change. So join a game-based discussion about hot topics on the environment with the guidance of a facilitator. The workshop will simplify the science behind this important subject and empower participants to take action. Then the new Story Walk is going up on September 19th. The launch of the Story Walk will be in the Westmount Room on Friday the 19th from 4 to 5 p.m. So on the Story Walk, the book that will be there is Jackie's Drawings by Andrew Katz, who is a friend of the library, and he will be there for the launch. Then design a video game. So this is for kids between 13 and 17 on Friday, September 19th and the 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. So learn the basic principle of coding in a video game. Imagine and make your own playable 2D platform game. All equipment and materials provided. Oh yes, this is a fun one. So, sorry, making you laugh, Anitra. So author event, another one. So what stories can menus tell? You might have heard about it. There was a big article in the Gazette 2 weekends ago, I think. So on Sunday, September 28th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. at Victoria Hall. So it's with Natalie Cook, who is professor and author of Tastes and Traditions, A Journey Through Menu History. And I'm happy to say and proud to say she's also an important member of the Westmount Library Committee. So join Natalie for lively talk on the hidden stories menus reveal through words, design, historical context. Discover menus, why menus matter, and try your hand at a fun riddle challenge drawn from vintage menu items. And there's more, but I'll conclude with this one. So there's Ballroom Blitz on Saturday, September 28th from 8 to 12 a.m. That's late for Westmount. An evening of swing and ballroom dance music with 13-piece Ballroom Blitz Big Band with vocalist Ruth Dana. Dance the night away with classics and less commonly heard gems of the big band swing era, as well as a great ballroom tango, mambo, foxtrot, samba, waltz rhythm, and bring your dancing shoes. There's going to be a cash bar. And I realized the other day, I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't have anyone to go with, and they don't go. And, you know, I've mentioned it before, I'd like to switch from my job as a counselor to a job as a barmaid at some of these events. So I hear... Haven't tried that one, maybe next time. But it's fun when people are leaving, I hear them say, oh, Judy, it was great to meet you. Yes, nice meeting you, Nancy. And there's all these people from the community getting to know each other, and building new friendships. So please don't feel shy to register. If you're alone, you'll make friends there. So I think that's it for those announcements, but please go online as I always suggest. There's much more, believe it or not, and many of the events I've mentioned you need to register for. So finally, before I end, I will ask you for a few more moments for a personal announcement this time. So it certainly hasn't been an easy decision. I care deeply about the city. I have had great respect for Westmount residents, and I've enjoyed the work of a city councillor immensely. Work isn't even the right word for it. I felt privileged to have the chance to help make the city a better place for our community. However, after much thought, reflection, and meaningful discussions with my husband and children, I have come to the conclusion that our family objectives, as well as my personal objectives and responsibilities, do not align with my being on council for another mandate. I will therefore not seek re-election as councillor for District 2. Ce fut un véritable honneur d'avoir été élu à titre de conseillère municipale par les résidents de mon district il y a près de 4 ans maintenant. En faisant du porte-à-porte dans tout le district et ayant eu l'occasion de parler à tant de personnes à cette époque, j'ai été frappée par leur connaissance, leur bienveillance et l'engagement des Westmontais envers leur ville. Je me suis sentie privilégiée d'avoir leur confiance et j'ai essayé d'être à la hauteur de leurs attentes. Since my elections, conversations on doorstep, on the street, at community events, phone calls, emails, and the knowledge shared in so doing has shaped my decisions. I was always impressed and inspired by residents' willingness to engage on the issues that matter. During my time on council, I've had the privilege of working alongside a dedicated group of councillors and members of our administration. I'm pleased with many things this council has accomplished. Some of our streets have been rebuilt and repaved. More importantly, a portion of Sherbrooke Street this summer. The playgrounds at Westmount and Devon Parks redone. The new studio at the library designed, built, and launched. Important investments made in our IT department. We have seriously undertaken the planning for the redevelopment of the southeast sector of the city, which desperately needs it. And the list goes on. Même si j'ai toujours cherché à faire preuve d'esprit d'équipe, je suis fière d'avoir pris une position dissidente à 3 reprises lorsque j'estimais que les décisions du Conseil n'étaient pas dans l'intérêt des résidents et de la communauté. Consultation insuffisante des résidents eu égard à la reconstruction de Lexington, nouveau contrat de collecte des ordures et le 27 mai dernier, la première adoption d'un plan pour le Sud-Est que les résidents n'avaient pas encore vu. I have done my best to be there for residents regarding individual matters as well as major projects in the district. Preservation of the canopy and the landscaping design in Murray Park. The different street reconstruction projects, the Claremont Triangle pilot project, and of course, making sure, a timer, I'm nearly done, making sure we were being fiscally responsible. There's so much to be done in the city, and it seems that pay-as-you-go alone can't get us where we need to go. We unfortunately need to borrow, but I was vigilant to make sure we didn't borrow more than we absolutely needed to. Ai-je accompli tous les objectifs que je m'étais fixés? Malheureusement, non. Il reste encore beaucoup à faire. Par exemple, améliorer la sécurité des enfants autour de l'école Roslyn. Des mesures simples comme l'installation de bollards de protection à l'angle nord de Grosvenor et de l'avenue Westmount, où le trottoir s'abaisse au niveau de la rue et donne aux piétons un faux sentiment de sécurité. Des dos d'âne importants sur Grosvenor, comme ceux que l'on retrouve sur tant d'autres rues de Westmount, contribueraient, je soupçonne, grandement à réduire la vitesse. Like many who serve in public office, I had hoped of moving certain files further than I did. Progress has been made to give back its luster to Murray Park. As the plan that was presented by local landscape architect Sophie Robitaille continues to be implemented, I'm hopeful the park will be a place where more and more Westmounters will enjoy spending time in what is a unique pastoral setting. I wish to sincerely thank Mayor Christina Smith for appointing me as Commissioner of the Public Library and Community Events. It was a true pleasure to get to know and to help in any way I could the wonderful team of extremely talented and dedicated people who work with pride at making sure the library remains the jewel of our city, and who work with great care at organizing events that residents are keen to attend. No detail is ever overlooked. It's not just at the library and community events that you find staff with that level of dedication. We are privileged as there are many exceptional people working in our city, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate with them. Bien que j'ai choisi de ne pas me représenter, mon engagement envers notre communauté reste fort. Je me réjouis de soutenir et d'encourager ceux qui assumeront cette importante fonction au sein du prochain conseil municipal. Thank you again for your trust, your ideas, your support, and for allowing me to serve on Westmount City Council. It has been a tremendous honor.
I just, on behalf of all of council, I just want to say an enormous thank you to Councillor Roux, who, like so many before her and on this council, who didn't need to seek out public service, and she did for the love of her community. She has worked incredibly hard. She has set the bar very, very high at community events and the library, and her dedication to that. And there is literally not one event that she didn't. I can't actually think of an event that the library held or community events that she didn't attend, that she wasn't cheerful, that she wasn't cleaning up afterwards and helping put away chairs, and has been a complete joy to work with. So I will miss you, but I do think I see a future chair of our library committee. But I won't be here, so we'll have lots of time together to stroll through Murray Hill Park together. But certainly, I know I speak on behalf of my council, or behalf of council and the administration and the citizens that you represent, that you worked incredibly hard, and you always showed up, and you did it with grace and dedication to your residents. So thank you.
Thank you, and as I said, I truly enjoyed it, so it wasn't work. But thank you.
Monsieur Demico, puis après ça, on va commencer avec la période de questions. Je sais que c'est long, mais on va faire des commentaires ce soir et au lieu de le 18 peut-être.
OK. Donc, merci Madame la mairesse. Donc, moi aussi, j'aimerais remercier la conseillère Roux de la part de la ville de Westmount et de nous les conseillers. C'est vraiment, ça va être une perte pour la ville. Vous avez toujours été là avec enthousiasme, avec rigueur et avec passion. Donc, c'est sûr que vous serez manqué. Donc, un gros merci de tout cœur pour tout ce que vous avez fait pour la ville de Westmount et pour le conseil. Merci, conseillère Roux. Donc, ça me laisse à penser, c'est quoi le rôle d'un élu municipal? Donc, pour moi, mon rôle à moi, vraiment, c'est d'être à l'écoute de la population. Donc, d'être à l'écoute des entrepreneurs et aussi d'être à l'écoute des résidents. Selon l'expérience que j'ai vécue dans les consultations publiques que j'ai assistées sur la rue de Lexington et, par exemple, sur Upper Lansdowne, c'est mon opinion que les résidents qui habitent dans le quartier ou dans le district sont les meilleurs placés pour donner ce qui est mieux pour le district. Madam Mayor, I think my role as an elected person is really to listen. So I want to listen to both the developers and to the residents of the district. I am of the opinion that the residents of the district really know the district best. As I've witnessed with the public consultations that I've done on Lexington and, for example, on Upper Lansdowne, also the trees of King George Park. We have residents that are very well, that are knowledgeable, extremely well versed, and really understand. I'm really impressed with the quantity and the quality of emails that I receive from you, the residents, regarding the issues, whether it's the PPU or whether it's the legislation on dogs or whether it's the environment. I'm really, really impressed. So for me, the decision is not very difficult. For me, I'd like to listen to the developers, and I think I agree with the developers that say they see height and they see, for example, 2 towers instead of 4. I agree with that. I agree with height on St. Catherine. St. Catherine, for me, is a commercial artery, so I'm not against height. I'm also of the opinion that I think when you present work, you should present work of very high quality and not present work that you're going to correct later. So I am of the opinion that if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. I don't think anybody at this table is in favor of canceling this PPU. I think we all want what's best for the city of Westmount, and for me, that is to deliver a product that has buy-in from the community, that the entrepreneurs or the developers agree with. And for me, it's really an easy vote for me, so I will be voting against this specific PPU. I'm not against the PPU. I'm not against height on St. Catherine. I'm just against this vision, and that's all I'm against. But I'm in favor of everything else. And I also want to congratulate the Urban Planning Department that has done an exceptional job on this file. I just don't think that this is the right PPU for the city of Westmount. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, on va commencer avec la première période de questions, mais juste avant ça, I'm just going to see how long can I drag this out for. No, I just want to make a comment because we are getting close to the end of this mandate. We're getting close to the end of my frayed nerves. But I just want to applaud all those who have had the courage to, so far, and there may be more, to have come forward to put your name on a ballot. I see some former councillors here as well. They could, you know, have a survivors club of some sort, and a former mayor. But serving your community, serving the residents that live amongst you, serving your neighbors is an incredible privilege. My advice to all of you is that you will have to live in this community when this is all done, and we all have to live together. And it's that municipal politics is different in that way. It's very personal. When you know, write things about elected officials or those who dare to serve, they read them, they understand them, they know who you are. And it's not to say that there shouldn't be debate, but it is a reminder that we do all have to live here afterwards together. But I must say I've been thrilled to meet anyone who's, I've met a couple of the candidates, or most of the candidates actually, that I know of so far. Maybe there's some tomorrow coming out that I haven't met yet. And I genuinely appreciate their willingness to serve, their dedication, and I have an enormous amount of respect for the people that I've had the privilege of serving with, and we have done a lot of work. I know there's a bit of a misnomer out there that we haven't done a lot of work. We have put our head down, and we have done an enormous amount of work. We have done an enormous amount of infrastructure work, and we have not cut ribbons on things, because you don't always cut a ribbon on a water network, but we have done the work of the things that needed to be fixed, and we will continue to do so. And the work of the PPU and the Southeast sector, we knew was never going to be easy. I'd seen, you know, the first iterations of this and how hard my former colleagues worked on trying to move this forward. And the former councillor for the district who worked so hard to try and move this forward. And we do so with the best interest of the community at heart. And we will continue to do so. And I truly believe that this can be, you know, such an incredible gateway to our city. So I will continue to work on that until my very last day in office. But I do want to remind everybody that we do have to live here all together afterwards. But I applaud you for having the courage to put your name on a ballot. And it keeps the democratic process alive. And I know listen, I've been acclaimed once and elected twice. And being acclaimed for sure is easier, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But being elected forces you to get out more, talk to more people. It makes you a better candidate, and it makes you a better, if you do get the privilege of serving your residents, it makes you a better elected official. So I wish you luck, and I am here for anyone who's running. I am open to meet you. I'm open to talk to you, and talk to the other people that have also served on council, because you will find an enormous amount of wisdom. And then talk to the people that are currently serving now, because they will talk to you about some of the issues that haven't been raised tonight. I mean, obviously the Southeast is huge. How the protests have unfolded in our community has had an enormous impact on residents, on businesses. The infrastructure work that needs to be done has also had an enormous impact. It's messy and dusty and dirty and disruptive, but it needs to get done. And I believe truly that we've found a balance in that infrastructure work of roads and sewers and networks and hydro and parks and buildings. And you can cherry pick numbers, which I've seen done to sort of manipulate of what we've chosen to do. But I think we've done so thoughtfully and with the best interest of the community at heart. So I am proud of the work that we've done, and I am certain that Westmounters will pick the right people to continue that work. Donc, on va commencer avec la première période de questions. And I am going to take the liberty, if the questions are repetitive, that we're going to try, in the interest of time, and we'll try not to repeat everything the same time. Donc, première période, first question.
Karen Marks, Lansdowne Avenue. If you'll give me 1 second or two just before the question to thank Elizabeth Roux. As many of you know, she's become a friend. It started when she said she was interested in running for council, and I met with her and I said, you're exactly what council needs. So I have been very proud to watch her work her tail off in the way that I think councillors should, being at everything and working very, very hard. And somebody mentioned with a passion, and I think that one could not have asked for more passion from anybody. Sometimes for what was going on and sometimes against it, but the passion was always there. And you all thanked her as a member of council, as a member of the community. I thank you, Elizabeth, for what you contributed and for how much it took, because I know that your family did not get to see you a lot when you were at all of those events that the city does. And I think all of us benefited from it and really appreciate it. So thank you again. We all agree that the Southeast, and particularly St. Catherine Street, is in dire need of refurbishing, and this has been repeated by council and supporters of the LeMay plan over and over. We've also been told by Mayor Smith and by some of the developers that the proposed buildings on the LeMay plan will not be done for 7, 8, maybe even 10 years. So this isn't surprising
I don't think
because of the
committed to that.
slowdown. Well, you did actually once say, you know, they may not be built for 7 or 8 years. So, and that's a very good possibility because
may not.
the condo market right now is in a real slump. One has only to look at the Square Children's, who are offering rentals and condos at decreased prices because they can't sell them, and even the rentals they're having trouble doing. But surely council doesn't expect that that means nothing will be done to clean up the blight on our city on St. Catherine. I went to look at the Capital Works budget and saw nothing that seemed to indicate what might be done there. You mentioned the sidewalks on the north side of the street, but is there anything that is planned in the Capital Works in the next few years to improve lighting, street furniture, flower boxes, city street terraces? Has anybody been in touch with Alexis Neon to discuss the possibilities of opening it up to St. Catherine Street to create a more appealing and lively atmosphere? I had suggested several times that I thought that would be a good first step to creating a more appealing area for investment, but that was not heard. And in looking at the triennial Capital Works budget, I see nothing that indicates that this is planned. So that's really my question, is what is planned in the next 3 years in your Capital Works budget?
So in the capital, well, you'll see the sidewalks are, the north side is committed to. We're going to be awarding the contract. The work will begin. They have done some improvements in terms of, but like, let's be honest, flower boxes are not going to solve this problem. But they have tried to add some of that to the area. And it will be up to, in next year's, they will redo the Capital Works budget. And if the next council wants to add more projects in that area, they should have a clearer path of what's going to happen. So then they can, I leave that to the next council.
So nothing's in there now in the 3 years?
Currently, we have some water work that's some water work. Obviously, the green water work
We
is
have a
being.
little money put aside for some revamp of
Yes,
St.
for some
Catherine's.
beautification.
Okay. Just a second question. You mentioned diversity, that you wanted wide diversity, but then why are we allowing minimums all across the board of 550 square feet? If we want to know that there will be families in those units, that there will be, I mean, that really says to the developers, build whatever you want as long as there's a minimum of 550 square feet. So that really isn't guaranteeing any kind of diversity, which the city would have a right to do.
Want to take this one? Sure.
In the past, we've been quite prescriptive with setting minimum thresholds. We've run into some challenges with those minimum thresholds, and that they sometimes don't calibrate to meet the market. And again, these are just minimums. Project owners, project investors are going to build what they think meets the market. And I'll cite the example of at 1 to 3 Hillside, the existing armory that's slated for redevelopment. Low rise, 4 stories.
That it was almost blocked by referendum, by one vote, by the people who live in a building that was built on a demolished site that didn't want new neighbors. Let's just put the context in there of how that building got through.
So that project was approved by council. It went to market. It has come back to us because the large units that they were trying to sell, upwards of 2,000 square feet, sometimes larger still, were not finding a buyer. And our constraints, the way that we've written it, have made it such that they couldn't move around and change the offering to match our regulations. What we're trying to do is be less prescriptive. I feel that there's very little chance that any of us are going to get that recipe just right. What we can do is get out of the way, decide on what our minimum thresholds are, and let the market calibrate with that. I'll go back to the towers, for instance, the towers that we are proposing. I agree with many people who say, towers aren't necessarily, very tall towers aren't necessarily a match for families. But that's not the only offering in the sector. We're also looking at Dorchester with mid-rise apartments with a different configuration, which are very well suited to receiving and welcoming families. So it's not.
But they also have a 500 square foot minimum.
Yes,
right?
they do. Yes,
Okay,
they do.
just
Yeah, for sure. But what it also means is that the property developers can cobble together the mix that they think is right. And I just would be very hesitant to prescribe, because prescription has gotten us into problems in the past. And I don't feel much confidence in myself to know that I can get that right. And for that, I'd rather just personally set the minimum and see what comes, and it should all work out.
I sure hope you're right.
I know. See, you're going to come back when I hope it's all on tape, because it's coming back to me in the future. I know it.
Prochaine question.
Good evening, Lynn Casgrain, 562 Grosvenor.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Smith and councillors. Bonsoir tout le monde. On September 1st, I wrote to you, council and mayor, about the Southeast and LeMay proposal, of course, and some concerns and questions I have. But I never received an acknowledgement or an answer, I'm sorry to say. Thorough studies and analysis are essential for any project, and the community should have access to information about infrastructure capacity, potential revenues, agglomeration contributions, and the cost associated with these services. Have these analyses been done, and if so, can they be made public? That's one of my questions. I'd like to mention that the Resilience Center for Indigenous People, located at the corner of St. Catherine and Atwater, is scheduled to move in 2026. So this transition will likely change the character of that corner and could create new opportunities for revitalization of that sector. As well, the Reddy Memorial Hospital on Tupper Street, now used as a refugee center, is severely underutilized. The government-owned building is large, well-situated, and could be repurposed for housing development. Has the city or council contacted them to ask about their plans so that they could be included in the proposal. All these factors and others underscore the need for further research and thoughtful planning. Nobody wants to scrap the proposal. Nobody wants to do nothing. That is not the choice. The second option proposed by Councillor Peart seems very appropriate. Can you? Well, no. The pausing of the project. He said there were 3 options. First option. Oh, that was okay, well, first option. I like that option. Le site du Sud-Est est le dernier grand terrain disponible pour le développement dans notre ville. Son développement devrait être une source de fierté et non de division pour les Westmontais. Son destin devrait être fortement influencé par ceux qui ont choisi de vivre ici et qui se soucient de notre avenir collectif. Je vous demande donc de suspendre la ratification finale jusqu'aux élections du 2 novembre et jusqu'à ce que les Westmontais se soient prononcés. Mais il n'est pas question de rien faire, c'est certain. Merci.
Donc, merci pour vos commentaires. Puis, je pense que beaucoup de monde a déjà parlé de quelques points que vous avez demandés mais je pense que c'est pas clair pour moi parce qu'il y avait beaucoup de résidents qui ont prononcé sur ça. Il y avait beaucoup de monde qui était... Je ne sais pas si vous étiez aux consultations publiques. On avait beaucoup de monde là, puis je reçois des emails tout le temps. Je parle avec beaucoup de monde qui... C'est pas toujours le même message. C'est pas toujours les mêmes gens qui sont contre. Mais je pense que c'était clair pour le Conseil qu'un pause, c'était pas la solution pour ça. Mais les choses qu'on n'a pas entendues, comme c'est quoi la solution? Est-ce que la solution, c'est 12 étages? Est-ce que c'est 15 étages? Est-ce que c'est 2 tours de 30 étages? On veut... savoir c'est quoi.
Mais avant de se rendre à la solution, il faudrait savoir quels sont les coûts de nos infrastructures.
Puis
c'est une question que je vous
c'est une
pose.
question, et à cette étape, c'est une vision aussi de qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire dans le secteur, puis on doit faire quelque chose, c'est sûr.
Tout à
Mais
fait
est-ce qu'on peut avoir tous les coûts à ce moment, à ce point? Ils ne vont pas avoir tous les coûts, mais on sait que les travaux, il faut faire. Mais c'est comme... On a des gens qui posent des questions comme à Blainville ou quelque part, à Mirabel, quand on se bat une nouvelle communauté qui n'a pas des rues, qui n'a pas des écoles, qui n'a pas des parcs, qui n'a pas des networks de hydro. C'est pas la même chose de tout. Donc, je pense que M. Aronson a une réponse ou une question.
Well, you know, on the subject of like, can we get the final bill of exactly what it's going to cost to put this
No,
stuff in
I'm
here?
not talking about final bill. We're talking about estimates, about
Okay.
an idea
And
of what it's going to cost. That's
Yes.
all it is, not a precise cost. Just a question
So
about
even
the
if we're in a
infrastructure.
situation where we were going to say, okay, let's release the range, where do we begin and where do we end? What's the cost of copper going to be in 2029? What's the cost of labor going to be in 2030?
Donc, OK.
So it's a
Merci
difficult-
pour la
hold on,
question.
hold on.
Je pense que...
If you wouldn't mind, let me finish what I'm saying, please, okay? The question is a really easy one to ask, but a very difficult one to answer. But at the fundamental root,
I agree.
but the fundamental problem is that when the city's administration and the council study what is going to end up being the subject of public tendering, we have to be extremely careful what information we as an organization put into the public, because there are a lot of rules and regulations around how public tendering is to be handled. And if what we were to do is start from a place of saying, well, we've determined that we've got X amount of money that we're going to spend, let's go out to public tender, it can have a very negative and serious impact on our ability to get competitive bids. So we have to walk very, very carefully as to exactly what we say, when we say it, how we say it. Nevertheless, at its root, one thing is certain, regardless of what is eventually, if anyone brings forward a project that conforms with a future zoning plan, we're going to have to say, all right, now we know what people propose to build. That gives us some baseline information. But if nobody brings anything forward whatsoever, that doesn't mean money isn't going to get spent. We have basic, serious maintenance of and improvement of public infrastructure that needs to be done no matter what happens.
Of course.
So
But the PPU restricts you in that it allows for a certain amount that you can never walk back. That's the thing. You can never walk back from it.
hold on a second now. In the event that developers bring forward proposals that give us some additional baseline information in terms of like where are we sometime in the future as to what might be necessary for this. There are a number of different ways that we can approach dealing with whatever costs may come. But we need to know what people are going to build before we can get any more targeted on pricing. We need to know what, we need to know when, and we need to know what
Jurisprudence tells you that the minute you have a zoning bylaw or a PPU, that is it. You cannot walk it back. The minute you have a proposal, whatever the proposal is, and it's going to be probably very close to complete, the proposal from your builders, the minute you have a PPU and a zoning bylaw, you cannot walk it back. That's the jurisprudence. Anyway, I'll leave you on this. Thank you.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Hello, Caroline Jondal, 4470 St. Catherine Street West. Well, I'm actually at the microphone unusually, to congratulate, félicitations, two councillors in particular. One, of course, is Elizabeth Roux, and it was mentioned before, most of you wear different hats, but the hats that you adopted, that you chose to wear, I personally witnessed, and it was really beautiful. Your barmaid, félicitations, because the welcoming was warm, sincere, and it's going to be missed. Thank you. However, I just want to add, you mentioned the environment event that is coming, the event for the environment. Well, I would like to return just briefly to the usual hat that I wear on emissions and climate change. I was visiting a friend at Westmount Manoir, before coming here, and outside was a large vehicle with people in it, and the engine had been running for much longer than the 3 minutes, which I think is too long. I would say at least 15 minutes. And I asked the daughter of the person, and she said, oh, my mother's the nurse from the CLSC. She said, my mother's the nurse, and she's seeing a person. And I thought, very good. It's good. It's good that nurses, but they had no idea what the climate change is about, what climate crisis is about. So I would plea with you to invite CLSC nurses, for example, because it's not the first time, invite them to that special meeting because there seems to be a bit of a lack of understanding. Thank you very much. The second person that I really wish to say félicitations is to Councillor Cheney. The other hat that, and I guess everyone here knows, I'm not sure. I happen to know because I was there on Saturday for the Cedars Cancer Foundation Regatta, and my team, the Power of the Dragon, participates. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful event, not just for Westmount, of course, but for everybody. And certainly, I've lost 3 family members this summer. And so when we were in the flower ceremony, it was so incredibly moving, and we wouldn't have had the same, as I understand, the same flower ceremony this year were it not for your...
Bravo, Jeff. On that note, when Jeff first became a councillor, and every resident that he would come forward with, he would bring it like it was, and I would say to Jeff, it's a good request, but remember, it is not your cancer patient. They have asked for something that is not allowable within our PAIA or something, and he too fights very hard for his residents. Prochaine question.
John Breslaw, Grosvenor Avenue. There are a number of items on the agenda this evening. The first one that I want to touch is item 35, where you're spending $5 million on renewing components of the municipal buildings. Could I beg you to spend 0.01% of that and put in a silent air conditioner here?
At City Hall?
Here, this one here. My hearing's not getting any better, and I'm sure...
You should see the GC room, but yeah.
Do it for me, please, love. Okay, so that's the first one.
That's your first question, okay.
It's not the first question.
I'm
so-
counting.
Yeah, lovely.
One in, you got one left.
The second comment, not question yet, second comment is on the... let me do a comment first. Congratulations, I have to commend you on both the reduction of the height on the north side of Dorchester to 6 stories and the concept of putting out the design for a competition. I think that is absolutely excellent. I am amazingly impressed, and I think that is the sort of direction that one should be going.
Thank you, Mr. Breslaw. Next
That's the
question.
comment. Now let's get to where I'm going. The next item on the agenda is item 35, which is a motion to borrow
35 was
34,
buildings.
borrow $17.5 million. Obviously, the cost of projects is a really important component in this context. Now, you may remember that we had a public meeting at Victoria Hall on June the 18th, attended by over 200 residents, to provide the public consultation on the PPU for the Southeast sector, as is required by law. At this meeting, Mayor Smith, both you and city officials addressed questions about transparency. One of the things, Madam Mayor, that you stated was that the project finances, including expenditure forecasts and anticipated sources of revenue, would be made available to residents ahead of any approving vote. Your words. And so I know, Matt, you sort of responded to it somewhat. There are clearly huge costs in terms of substation for providing the electricity. Yeah. There are obviously a number of costs in water and sewage. There are the additional costs, obviously, that we have in providing the services for these new residents. And as well, of course, the taxes will get slashed by 50% since half of them go to the AGLO anyway.
Half of your taxes also go to the AGLO.
Absolutely, I noticed them.
It's not a Southeast problem.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So the public consultation was in lieu of a referendum. A public consultation on a project that does not consider the finances involved, even the back of the envelope finances, of what sort of revenues, what sort of incremental revenues you expect from this project, what sort of incremental costs you expect from this project, is simply a basic concept for project evaluation. I don't have to be an economist to say this, but you cannot have a public consultation without having those sort of figures. And they don't have to include expectations of the increase in future cost of copper, but it does have to have some attempt. That hasn't been provided and still hasn't been provided. And in that sense, Madam Mayor, the public consultation is not satisfactory. If you do not provide, and this is your last chance of providing it, if you do not provide that information, then how can we have a serious public consultation on the project?
So you raised many points in this, and many of them have already been addressed. I think some of the the discussion that you've had is that we couldn't possibly service this area. This area has been serviced. This area, you know, this area serviced the Montreal Children's Hospital with that hydro network there.
That's being
And
given
it's
away-
also,
that's
I think
being
what you need to look at as well, Mr. Breslaw, is the missed opportunity here as well, the missed opportunity in tax revenue that has literally sat empty almost for decades now. And that is also what we are looking at. So I don't know if anyone, I think Councillor Gallery wants to weigh
I'd just
in on
like
this.
to add that, from what I understand, there are tools now given by the province that cities can force the developers to absorb many of those costs. Secondly, I'd like to add that St. Catherine and Atwater is already on the docket for major investment in the like the sewers and the water mains.
We
So
know that.
those
PPU
are
or
being-
not, that road needs to be rebuilt.
that work is coming regardless. So
Aware of that
we
too.
can't guesstimate at that time what that's going to cost and what year that work actually gets done, but it's coming.
I understand that.
Next
with respect
question.
With respect to the hydro, that question was asked. We did receive a response. The hydro that was originally provided to the Children's Hospital has been reallocated elsewhere in Westmount and is not available to provide that facility for this new development. That, you know, that came clearly. Look, it's not it's not the I's and the T's. It's any consultation has to be meaningful. We both agree on that.
I do, and I do believe truly, we wouldn't be moving forward with this if I didn't believe these public consultations were not done in bad faith. They were many participants in them, many people who shared differing views and share differing views than you or the people in this room. There seems to be a notion that there is no support for moving forward with this plan. We wouldn't be moving forward if we weren't hearing from differing views on this.
Okay.
But there's a long line behind you, and you've asked several questions, so I'm going to move on to the next question.
Let me finish with one concept. Very clear. Good.
Long line.
Long line. Okay. I'll come back.
But thank you, Mr. Breslaw. Next question.
Ben Spencer,
Welcome.
Victoria Avenue. With respect to the mayor's opening remarks about the difference in the Dorchester heights, 3 and 3, 6, can you please clarify what that equals in meters?
That will be 18 point something-ish. So it is come down.
18
And that's the
approximately.
maximum. So that is the maximum. The next council will dictate what happens there. It's minimum 3 stories with a setback, maximum 6. I know this backs out onto your building, so it is lower. But it is a request that we heard from residents. It's a request that we've heard from the other side to bring the height down a little bit. And we felt that was the right approach. So that it doesn't necessarily mean there is no project in hand. The next council will have to manage what they want. They own that land, right? The city owns that land. It's the last parcel of land like that we own. So there will absolutely have to be public awareness, consultation. People we should have a design competition. It's an opportunity to make something spectacular and to solve, and I truly believe whatever goes in there should be solving a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening, bonsoir, Alex Chamian, chemin de Casson. Je vais en profiter, si vous me le permettez, pour remercier vraiment l'ensemble des élus municipaux pour le travail que vous faites, qui n'est vraiment pas difficile en ces temps difficiles pour la démocratie. Puis j'en profite également pour remercier Mme Roux, je ne vous connais pas personnellement, mais je vous remercie pour le travail que vous avez fait au courant des dernières années. C'est pas facile, puis c'est sûr qu'on a toujours des désaccords, mais je pense, puis je fais un rappel un peu à tous, mais faisons-le avec respect. Je pense qu'on est des humains, on a des désaccords, mais je pense qu'on veut tous le bien pour notre ville.
Merci.
Et en fait, là, une question sur le plan de développement du Sud-Est. C'est un très bon plan. Puis oui, on a besoin de logement. Il y a une crise du logement. Ma génération, j'ai 21 ans, on est durement touché par cette crise-là. Par contre, moi, je pense qu'il y a plusieurs questions qui demeurent en suspens. Plusieurs questions, je pense qu'il y a 2 questions fondamentales à mes yeux pour lesquelles on n'a toujours pas de réponse. La première, les jeunes, je vous l'ai dit, c'est la génération. En fait, les jeunes sont les plus touchés par cette crise du logement-là. Quelle sera la proportion? Puis je comprends que, évidemment, le projet, il y aura un plan qui va être voté la semaine prochaine. Puis je comprends que par la suite, il va y avoir les développeurs, les promoteurs immobiliers qui vont pouvoir vous présenter leurs propres paramètres. Par contre, quelle proportion de logements sera réservée aux jeunes? Parce qu'on sait que c'est extrêmement cher. Moi, pour être honnête, j'ai perdu espoir de pouvoir m'acheter une propriété à Westmount ou même nulle part sur l'île de Montréal. Donc, quelle part de logement sera réservée, en termes de logement abordable pour monsieur, madame, tout le monde, mais pour qu'on ait une part de logement abordable. Également, une deuxième question aussi, là, j'avais écouté les débats en ligne, puis j'avais vu dans le Westmount Independent, je pense qu'avez-vous, madame la mairesse, sans vous imputer des motifs, vous aviez dit que il y a une station de métro à côté du secteur, donc il nous faut des logements. Toutefois, on sait, c'est un secteur, le secteur qui est proche de Atwater, il y a malheureusement plusieurs personnes qui sont en situation d'itinérance. Quel sera le plan de la ville pour pouvoir prévoir des ressources pour peut-être héberger ces personnes-là, que l'on le veuille ou pas, là, ça fait partie de la réalité, puis ces personnes-là ont droit à un toit. Donc ça, c'est deux questions fondamentales dans un projet d'une telle envergure qui va redéfinir Westmount pour les 50 prochaines années au minimum. Je trouve ça déplorable qu'on n'ait pas une réponse à ces questions-là. Et oui, ce plan-là doit aller de l'avant, je suis tout à fait d'accord. Par contre, faites-le après les élections. Puis je vais terminer là-dessus. Il y a une élection qui s'en vient. Le vote par anticipation, c'est le 26 octobre. Le vote est le 18 octobre. Là, vous allez avoir à peu près un peu plus d'un mois avant le début du scrutin. Le 2 novembre, mais il y a le scrutin par anticipation le 26 octobre également. Donc, moi, ce que je vous demanderais de faire, puis je pense que c'est important, puis là, je sais qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de personnes de ma génération qui sont là, puis c'est bien correct, mais s'il vous plaît, attendez après les élections. C'est une période, les gens reviennent de vacances. Là, vous vous apprêtez à voter sur ce projet-là, qui est excellent, puis il doit être voté éventuellement. Mais là, vous nous mettez devant un faux dilemme. C'est un beau projet, encore une fois, mais s'il vous plaît, attendez. On parle de civisme. Vous avez dit dans une chronique l'année passée que vous voulez que le civisme soit de retour au conseil municipal. Mais s'il vous plaît, si vous avez une once de respect pour la démocratie, vous êtes en fin de mandat, attendez après les élections. Et s'il vous plaît, de grâce, écoutez les jeunes aussi. Je sais qu'il n'y en a pas beaucoup de jeunes qui viennent, mais écoutez les jeunes parce que c'est pour nous que ce projet-là, en premier lieu, va être développé. Donc, j'aimerais savoir quelle est votre réponse par rapport à ça.
Merci beaucoup pour vos commentaires. Je pense qu'on a répondu un peu à quelques questions déjà, mais on était toujours clair avec le timeline sur ça. C'était toujours clair que ça fait 2 ans qu'on parle de ça. On savait que ça va être au fin du mandat. Ça fait 12 ans que je suis sur le conseil. Ça fait 12 ans qu'on parle de Sud-Est et qu'est-ce qu'on fait. Et c'est toujours on tourne. On tourne toujours. C'est le prochain conseil. On va faire le prochain conseil. Ça fait 12 ans qu'on fait ça. Ça fait 2 ans qu'on a fait un plan avec le PPU, avec tout le conseil était au courant de ces dates. On savait que c'était la fin du mandat, mais on était élus. J'étais élu en 2017 avec une plateforme qui inclut le Sud-Est, d'avoir un plan pour le Sud-Est. Je suis déçue que ça a pris 8 ans. Ça prend du temps de faire ça. Si on recommence avec un nouveau conseil, avec un nouveau maire ou mairesse qui veut refaire tout le plan, ça va prendre un autre 4 ans. On n'a pas 4 ans d'attente. Les jeunes comme vous, il n'y a pas 4 ans d'attente pour d'autres logements. Et c'était toujours le clé pour ça, c'est d'avoir plus de logements, plus de résidents à Westmount. Parce que si on a beaucoup plus de choix, les places pour les gens ici qui faut déménager de leur maison parce qu'ils ne peuvent pas habiter dans une maison avec les escaliers et des choses comme ça, qui a besoin d'un appartement, ou un jeune qui veut rester à Westmount ou qui veut être tout près de Concordia et Dawson et McGill. Ça, c'était l'idée de faire ça. Est-ce qu'on va avoir toutes les réponses à toutes les questions comme l'impact sur le trafic? Non, jamais. On ne va jamais avoir ça. C'est une vision. On commence avec les visions pour le secteur, puis le 18, le conseil va voter s'il avance ou non. Et s'il n'avance pas, j'espère que ce n'est pas la fin de ça, parce que ça fait trop longtemps qu'on attend quelque chose dans le secteur.
Ce ne sera pas la fin de ça, juste avant que vous continuiez, ce ne sera pas la fin parce qu'il y a déjà un projet qui a été mis en place. Vous avez travaillé extrêmement fort, il n'y a rien qui est perdu. Vous nous mettez devant un faux dilemme, puis je comprends qu'il y a une urgence. Puis oui, les jeunes, on attend. Mais je pense que la majorité des jeunes là, qui seraient à ma place, ils veulent que ce soit fait dans les normes, que ce soit fait correctement, oui, il y a des consultations, mais le débat peut toujours être affiné. Puis je pense que dans les circonstances, il y a beaucoup de questions. Il y a 2 points que j'ai soulevés pour lesquels j'ai rien vu dans le Washington Independent, puis je pense que c'est des points qui sont importants, pour lesquels on n'a eu aucune réponse. Et c'est ce que vous nous dites en tout respect, là, c'est vraiment déplorable.
Merci. Est-ce que vous avez une réponse? Quelqu'un d'autre qui veut parler de ça? Non? OK.
Oui, je ne partage pas le point de vue de la mairesse. Donc, juste parce qu'on va attendre après les élections, on ne recommence pas à zéro, on ne recommence pas. Il y a beaucoup de travail qui est fait. Je veux féliciter l'administration. Ils ont vraiment fait, surtout l'aménagement urbain, ils ont fait un travail remarquable. Ce n'est pas un travail à refaire, c'est un travail de finaliser. Et moi, je suis du point de vue que je suis mieux de présenter quelque chose de qualité que de présenter quelque chose qui est moitié fait puis de le refaire par après. Donc, je partage votre point de vue. Je ne partage pas le point de vue de la mairesse. Donc, moi, je suis du point de vue qu'on va le faire correctement. Et juste parce qu'il y a d'autres élus qui vont être ici, ça ne veut pas dire qu'ils sont des incompétents puis ils ne savent pas quoi faire. Donc, je trouve ça pas correct, les propos de la mairesse.
Merci beaucoup.
Bienvenue. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, Mrs. Roux, we'd like to thank you. My name is Sora Balavi. I live at 503 Mount Pleasant. Give you our congratulations for the service you provided. I know it's not easy being council for all of you. I know it's a difficult task, especially with this specific project, the PPU. First of all, I'd like to just start by saying I wish we had more meetings with, not necessarily with council, but with the people concerned citizens, between developers and the concerned citizens, because development is a very complicated industry, and there's so much involved in it. And for the average person, or even a smart average person, unless you're really deeply in its roots, there's a lot of questions that you might have and things that you might oversimplify that are simply so complicated. And for example, I believe it was Mrs. Kent had a question. That's her name, Mrs. Kent? Marks, sorry, my apologies. This is Marks. You were saying why can we not have larger units, or why can we have larger units than 550 square feet? And to short answer that is that everything works with numbers in real estate. And I wish we could build 2, 3 bedroom units, large bedroom units for everybody, but the numbers just don't add up. It's all about square footage and how much we can rent or sell these square footages for. Even if we wanted to, the banks won't lend us the money. Because if I make a sheet where I put all large units and I put the rent amount for these units, the bank wouldn't lend us the money to develop it. So that is a simple answer that to some of the questions we could have easily answered if we had meetings with the concerned citizens. And I invite you all to reach out to me or any developer for a meeting to discuss this process and any other questions or concerns you might have. So to get back to my point, I find it unfortunate that this debate has really become about height. It's all about height, instead of focusing on quality. And quality is something we're going to work together on, as Mr. Pert said, with the developers. This is just a first step. And we want to work on improving this plan, not only with the council, but with the citizens of Westmount. This plan is not perfect for developers either. There are constraints, there are things in there that we don't like, but we're willing to compromise, and we need momentum, we need to move forward. Because one thing is certain, the reality is this area is now no longer safe. I don't know if everyone's aware, again, a couple weeks ago, there was a stabbing, a shooting. This is becoming a serious concern, and that should be prioritized over 5 stories more or 7 stories less. And as I said, the PPU is not perfect, but one thing is certain, and I keep repeating it, without density, there will not be any development. The numbers just won't work. And this plan has been supported vocally by some business leaders of Canada, some of the biggest business leaders in Canada. Mr. Demery, Mr. Wiener, Mr. Brofman, who have all publicly stated that although this plan is not perfect, we need to move forward. There will never be a perfect project. And I wanted to highlight a project that was actually very similar to what is happening here in our neighborhood on St. Catherine and Atwater. It's the Institut des Sourds-Muets. It was an article posted on La Presse, okay? This is a historical building from 1848, okay, that has been left vacant for over 10 years. A beautiful patrimonial building. And recently, they approved a 25-story and 17-story height building next to it, Le Québec Haute pour la Hauteur. And this project was approved by whom? By Monsieur Luc Rabouin, the mayor of Mount Royal, who's been...
Plateau.
Plateau, who's been very much against gentrification. He's a big protector of historical and patrimonial building, and the Plateau is one of the most difficult places to develop with Westmount. It has its reputations. Even he said that he is very favorable of this, and he has come to the conclusion that in 2019, he says, I wouldn't have approved this, but it has become obvious that la crise du logement change les donnes, mais aussi la réalité des montages financiers. En 2019, on n'aurait pas voulu un projet aussi dense. On aurait voulu que le gouvernement du Québec assume la mise en niveau du bâtiment patrimonial qui lui appartient à titre reconnu. Aujourd'hui, on comprend que ça n'arrivera pas. La pire chose, ce bâtiment-là, c'est qu'il ne se passe rien. And this is exactly what we're going through here. So all we do is come here and complain as to why this plan is not good and what the problems are with this plan. And we have our own complaints. We've complained to you guys about things we don't like about this plan. And it's the easiest thing to do. But has anyone come up with a plan over the last 8 months to propose to something to us or to anyone that makes sense? Or has anyone just simply come and said everything that is wrong with this plan and why it wouldn't work? I haven't heard anything.
Is that a question for me?
That is my first question, yes.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've had people come and complain. I have not necessarily heard a concrete, viable option for, there's a long history to this. I don't need to explain this to you. The city had been downzoned to 3 stories. There's been no actual there's been no activity in this area. We went from 3 stories to 7 with 10 on the corner in 2014. At that point, there wasn't necessarily huge outcome. There was, some feedback. We had been told, I certainly, as an elected official, had been told by urban planners and people from the industry, that won't work. Nobody will ever build in this. You're losing another decade on this. You really should revisit this. Just do it right for the first, just rip off the Band-Aid and do it correctly. And I agree with Luc Rabouin. I agree that when we started this, and when I started on council in 2013, there was the housing crisis is vastly different. The challenges that young people face and seniors for accessible housing that suits their needs is catastrophic. We have a whole generation of people that are completely locked out of a housing market, completely locked out. And that can't continue. And I hear this term forest of towers constantly. I mean, there is a forest of towers. It's called Westmount Square. And it's one of the great gems of this country is Westmount Square. There are 4 towers on that demolished heritage homes to build those. We are not demolishing anything. We are not taking down any heritage homes. We have written into the PAIA that you will have to respect the heritage, and it's not an 1800s building, but it is an important building in the area, is the Atwater Library. So is it perfect? No, everybody's had to put a little water in their wine. But it is an important step to move it to the next. We'll see on September 18th how we vote, but I think the greatest gift we could give the next council is to set them up to really start the work, which is what's going to happen on the Tupper lots and the projects that are going to come forward on St. Catherine Street. And that's a huge amount of work.
And so
And Madame Roux just, I think, wants to a quick comment.
Yeah, can you please tell me if my memory's serving me right? Because that article didn't come out recently. It was quite a few weeks ago, if not months, but I remember reading it.
No, it's last week, je pense.
Non,
Celui-là.
je pense pas.
No, it's like a month or so.
From
ago, yeah.
juillet or something like that. What I remember in the article, so correct me if I'm wrong, was that Montreal agreed to so much height because the building being abandoned for 10 years was in a disastrous state. And so they gave height to the developers so that they would make more money, because the more height, the more money, which is fine, so that they would have the money to renovate the building. So there was a donnant-donnant in there, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I don't see how
Okay.
that's different than the situation here. It's abandoned, there's abandoned buildings. And when you say they gave money to developers, it's not like developers.
No, they gave the chance to developers
To
to
develop
make
it,
money
correct.
so
That is
that they'll
correct.
have a bigger profit, so that they can spend part of that profit in renovating l'Institut des Sourds et Muets. So the Institut will be renovated, we'll get a nice building, mais c'est donnant-donnant à rénover l'Institut des Sourds et Muets.
So they sacrificed giving a bit of density, which they didn't want to do because they knew that's what it took to make the project work. And this is what we're trying to accomplish here. So my last question is basically, for those people who are against it, I mean, it's easy to be against, but what alternative
Easy
plan?
to be against.
What alternative plan do you have, or have you heard, that you believe is feasible? And developers will be on board to actually develop.
So I leave that to the people that are against to respond to that.
So I'll answer you. So your colleagues, the three of them that put the article in the newspaper, they're advocating 2 towers instead of 4 towers.
No, they're advocating.
That makes sense to me. I would share that vision, so I do share that vision. I just don't see 4 towers on St. Catherine Street. I see 2 towers, maximum 3. So you're asking me an example. I'm giving you one. The people that you cite would rather have 2 instead of 4. I agree with them.
Okay.
So I agree with experts in their field. I'm sure you're not going to contest that they're experts in their field.
I'm not going to disagree.
Okay.
But
So we agree.
3 towers of 30 stories, will that?
I'm not against height.
Okay.
I've said that very clearly.
but
I'm not against
But
height
that's why
on
I
St.
believe it's
Catherine.
important to get past this first step so that we can all get together and then get to the next
But
step.
we're not, I'm not saying,
Exactly.
I'm not saying to cancel this. We're
Yes.
just saying that we're going to postpone it and do it
That's going to be a
right.
disaster. I'm telling you.
That's you're entitled to your opinion. I respect
As an
that.
I don't know.
I do respect
Okay,
your
Madame
opinion.
Kez.
There's been a lot of debate about St. Catherine Street, and though I do have concerns, my main issue has been Dorchester. Dorchester, it's not just about height in Dorchester, it's about the massing on Dorchester, it's about the 12 stories on Dorchester. So I'm not, and you know, the
So
mistake with this.
you got to be clear that that is in the Kevrick lot where it's bonus zoning, where it has to show a significant community good. Like, here's a
But there's a
pool
potential for 12 stories nonetheless.
with a significant benefit to the community.
Agree. So, but that has been my concern, is the quality of life for that residential area. So the mistake, I believe, which I said from the onset, is this PPU includes St. Catherine Street going down. Yes, it has to work as a puzzle, but they're 2 complete separate areas. And I'm forced to postpone something because of a certain sector of it. So it's not because of the whole project.
I appreciate that.
Okay, c'est bon.
Explaining to you because you ask, so I'm explaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Good evening, Madam la Mairesse.
Welcome.
And Council. My name is Theodora Samiotis, and I live at 4274 Dorchester. As the councillor who began this process 12 years ago, I'm here this evening to state my concerns and to bring some things forward, because I have been rather quiet through this whole process. A process which I think needs to be underlined, because when we began this process 12 years ago, we've come a very long way from, you know, consultations at the Green Center with a few whiteboards, and that's it. So I don't think that that should go unrecognized in terms of the efforts that you made to seek out public opinion. Now, as for listening to it, that's another story, but that's why we're here to discuss it as well. You know, I understand the divisiveness, and I don't think, and to Councillor Shamey's comments, we can have an argument, we can have a discussion, we can have a debate. We don't need, you know, I was in with Councillor Kez's seat 8 years ago. I had people come to this council meeting and say, oh, you're only doing this development because you want to increase the value of your house. I don't think that that's the type of arguments and comments that council deserves. And by the way, Councillor Roux, I want to say congratulations to you as well for your 4 years. 4 years, because I understand what you're going through. I understand the seats you're in and the difficult decisions you have to make, weighing in, and that's the job of a municipal councillor, the concerns of a few versus the outcome and the benefit of the many, right? Whether it's one person coming for their permit or 25 or 100 or 150 people coming for a concern like the PPU. That's your job, and we have to recognize that and respect it. So my comments here, I'll try to be brief. So as I said, 8 years ago, I was in this room. We came forward with a plan. It was just Dorchester back then. We had upzoned St. Catherine, as Councillor Pert said correctly, to 7 and 10 stories. We never brought forward a vision that was really clear on that, and I honestly think that's probably why we didn't get any bites. Yes, probably they could have had more height, but they could have come forward too to ask for more height, but we didn't get any bites. Regardless, St. Catherine was put on hold, and we focused on Dorchester. And at the very 11th hour, like we are here, weeks away from elections, we had a proposition that was brought forward in draft form in council. The mayor was there, and it was just too dense. It did not respond to what the council, to what the residents wanted. And so my recommendation to council was to shelve it. Now, it got shelved from that council, which is an important note here for this discussion, but the new council inherited the final report of AJIL, as it was come to be known, right? And you had a chance to look at it, not all of you because you weren't all here, but you had a chance to look at it and review it, and you did decide at the time to shelve it, probably because it was still a very emotional and divisive issue. And as a council, I don't think you were ready to take that on, and you didn't want to take that on, but I don't want to speak for you. I'm just saying we had to take a pause. So we did take a pause, and we started the process again, or rather, you did, because I was no longer there. And you started the process again. Fast forward 8 years later, here we are with another proposal that has come up to be debated. And again, we have too much density that is not really conforming with, a lot of the comments that we've done here, that we've heard about. And really, you've shown, what I'm here to say is that you've shown tonight with some of the comments that you are listening and you are prepared to decrease heights on Dorchester. Remains to be seen exactly what the setbacks are going to be like, but as the mayor said, it is Westmount's property. That is the one place where we can and we should not be guided by images that are in no way, shape, or form respectful of the south side of that street. And they must have some deference to them. I'm not saying we're going to rebuild what's on the south side, but they must have a deference to that south side of that street. And so I was reassured to hear that it's looking like we're going to have that. I'm not sure what the final thing is going to say, but I'm glad that we did some progress. And I'm here to implore you and urge you perhaps to have a look again at those other heights, which I wasn't there in the June meeting, and I was so surprised.
Sorry to interrupt you, you mean on the
St. Catherine
side?
yeah.
Okay.
I think you need to, take that final, you're sharpening your pencils. We are in a process. I don't think that it's just going to, die on the order paper, and I'm going to ask a question to Councillor Pert on his option too. But in terms of, looking at those heights and the 11th hour, statement of, oh, we can't do this, we have no choice because of PMAT, I think left a lot of people feeling like, why were we not told this earlier? I know I was, because I was at some of the public meetings, and that wasn't part of that discourse. And so I think a lot of people are let down because they feel that that was something that was never communicated, and a lot of people have told me as such. So there is disappointment, and I think that's leading to some of that mistrust that people might be feeling in terms of not having the whole picture. So I guess, Conrad Pert, my question is for you in terms of, like, if the PPU freezes everything and we're looking at potentially option 2, adopting a framework and improving, how is that exactly supposed to work? Because there is a freeze currently on this whole, without, like, I guess, giving out too much, but.
So just before I hand over to Councillor Peart, thank you for your input. Thank you for, and if we ever do get anything built, and if it is revitalized, you have definitely had, you started this discussion, you started this very difficult discussion, and you sat in this chair month after month, being accused of any number of things unfairly, but you worked so hard to try and move this forward, and understanding that it needed revitalization, and you brought that forward. And I as I look back on, in my time as I leave, I can look back at a lot of things, and I look back and I feel sad that I feel like you really had to shoulder it alone. And that really guided me on this, that, we sat around a room and everybody agreed to this process, because I never wanted it to be one counselor having to shoulder this, because this is too big for one, and it is an important project for all of the city. It was also one of the guiding points of the PPU, was that this is a project for all of the city. Yes, obviously, the area, south of Dorchester, the people who live around there, they feel it more impactfully. Yes, of course they do, but it's also important for the entirety of the city, not just from it being an entry point, but from a tax revenue point, from all of the, you name it, the long laundry list of reasons why, and had been given advice in the AJOUT report that we should do that we should go forward with a PPU, and that it should look at as a cohesive plan of knitting the two areas, of lower on Dorchester, higher to St. Catherine. How do you integrate it, and what is the crossroads that will actually bring change? And so those were the guiding points of it. I will let Conrad, just in the interest of time, I know we're already 2 hours in and we haven't even gotten to the agenda yet, so I will let him respond to some of that. But there are, and in terms of the PAIMED, that is also an evolving thing. That was adopted June 8th as well. But we always knew it. We always knew this was a high density area. We knew that there were going to be obligations. Did we fail on communicating some of this? Absolutely. And I take responsibility for that.
Something you said earlier really touched me. It was about the once a city and council goes through something that is very divisive, it's very emotional, it kind of creates a bit of a hesitancy for the next council to take it on. and when I came on council, when some of my peers came on council in 2017, we had kind of
Going to touch that hot potato.
we sat by and looked at the bloodbath that was there before, and said, I don't think I really want to touch this right away, which kind of informs my hesitancy to.
And Dawson, dogs, turf. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But Dawson was a major point of the redevelopment.
For sure. So it kind of informs my hesitancy to push this off. When that next council comes around the table, the 9 people there, and have seen and have lived this friction and this division that we've had in the community, maybe they won't have that appetite to take it on. And so that kind of helps me move this forward, at least to overuse a sports metaphor, but move the ball down the field.
Yeah, I think what's different, though, this time, if I may, is that there is no disagreement in this room that something must be done for the Southeast. And I think that the issues of housing, social housing, are really front and center. And I think honestly that a new council will be criticized, and it will be incumbent upon them to continue this. They can't stop this now. There's been too much work, too much tax-paying dollars.
Bravo.
In terms of our studies that we've done and all the things that we did from 2013. There's like some infrastructure studies you should dig up from 2013. They'll tell you how much it costs to dig up Dorchester. But despite that, the last point I would just say is that, and I believe, Mary, I think you mentioned this, please, let's make sure, I know that some of it is in there, and I know that there are developers here and they want to work with the city. I had great experiences when I was a councillor at the Shaughnessy Village. There was a great roundtable there where we had developers, we had city officials, we had community groups, and the result was the east side of St. Catherine, which you can now, walk a little more on, which was, something else. So let's make that west side of St. Catherine something we're all proud to walk on again. And I don't think there's going to be anybody that's going to tell you to stop that process. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samiotis. Welcome. And then whoever's in line will cut it off then. We have a second question period. If you'd like to stay till midnight, you're welcome to. Welcome.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle Igor. Les gens
Bienvenue.
me connaissent déjà probablement du Conseil. Je suis déjà venu à la réunion du 18 juin. J'ai déjà parlé de mon expérience personnelle avec le logement, la raison pourquoi je supporte le PPU, le vote pour le PPU avant l'élection. puis le besoin de construire plus de logements tout simplement. Mais aujourd'hui, je veux premièrement vous présenter à la fin un document ludique. À chacun, c'est 9 copies.
OK, vous pouvez laisser avec le greffier.
Je le laisse à la fin.
Oui.
Cool. Puis, je veux parler du débat public. Selon moi, il y a un certain jeu d'illusion dans lequel les gens de cette salle entière jouent, incluant moi d'une certaine manière. Les gens d'ici parlent d'un manque de consultation de la population et de ne pas respecter un consensus, de ne pas respecter ce que les gens dans la salle disent. Mais regardons qui siège la réunion aujourd'hui. N'est-ce pas la même gang de gens que la réunion d'août, que la réunion de juillet, que la réunion de juin? Les mêmes gens viennent et parlent sans fin. Mais qui sont les gens qui ne parlent pas? Les gens qui ne parlent pas sont les 1100 ménages potentiels qui vivront dans cette belle ville. Les gens qui ne parlent pas sont les personnes qui vivent à Westmount, des milliers de personnes, mais qui restent chez eux car ils n'ont pas le temps, pas la connaissance et pas la personnalité de faire l'acte bizarroïde d'écouter des monologues sans fin à chaque mois. Finalement, les gens qui ne parlent pas sont les gars auxquels j'ai donné des sous pour s'acheter le prochain repas. Je pense qu'ils ont plus de préoccupations que de monologuer sans fin. C'est pour cela qu'on élit un conseil, des gens professionnels qui travaillent de jour en jour pour parler à des gens, non seulement en salle, mais porte à porte, par courriel, par téléphone, parler à des experts, parler à d'autres gens dans d'autres villes, etc., et faire une décision professionnelle. Les gens ici parlent de questions, d'infrastructure, de démocratie, de l'environnement. Je n'y crois pas. Je crois que les gens ici n'aiment pas comment l'endroit où plus d'1 millier de personnes vont vivre a l'air. Ils n'aiment pas les tours. Ils les aiment pas.
Est-ce que vous avez une question?
J'ai un commentaire.
Ou un monologue?
Posez-vous la question, mon du conseil. Si vous produisez des études favorables, si vous faites une autre consultation, combien de gens dans cette salle changeront leurs opinions? Je vais vous poser le document. C'est un document ludique. C'est pas des études de quoi que ce soit. Ça inclut c'est genre un bingo qui inclut quelques commentaires qui auront probablement été dits aujourd'hui. Jouez avec et regardez combien de lignes vous faites. Parce que les mêmes choses se répètent à chaque fois.
Donc, merci beaucoup pour vos commentaires et que je pense que c'est important que on a, comme j'avais dit toujours, on a beaucoup de voix dans cette communauté, puis c'est pas juste une génération ou des gens qui sont contre ou pour, mais j'apprécie beaucoup qu'il y avait beaucoup de jeunes qui m'ont écrit aussi. Donc, merci beaucoup. Et je comprends que c'est pas facile. Je comprends pour une génération des gens, c'est pas facile d'avoir l'accès au logement. Prochaine question.
Richard Sfour, 22 Anwath. Good evening. I have
Welcome.
Thank you. I have two comments/suggestions that you don't need to respond to, and I have two questions, if I may. I noticed that up on the agenda today, you're approving a budget to award the contract to redo some more of the sidewalks, concrete sidewalks, I believe, on Wood or St. Catherine or thereabouts. Suggestion, I noticed that part of the Wood Avenue sidewalks were redone between de Maisonneuve and St. Catherine on the west side, and all was done was just a big mass of concrete.
Yeah.
And even the new Sherbrooke Street reconstruction was mostly concrete. And I know that you're not doing a whole infrastructure or re-landscaping project, but I think we have opportunities when these contracts are given to have some more planting basins or having some more green spaces. I think they're missed opportunities, and I hope that going forward that you look at each contract when sidewalks are being done, that you consider having planting beds like you did, for example, on Westmount Avenue near Roslyn or whatever. It's quite lovely. What you did around the little square Prince Albert and even on Mount Pleasant north of Sherbrooke.
And dare I say Lexington.
Yeah. Another suggestion, comment, we're always talking about what's going to happen in the southeast sector, and we all know it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take several years. In the meantime, it still looks like hell. We have an empty lot with a spray urethane yellow kind of glaring out at you. We've got the old parking garage that's shrouded in the netting. I know that in a lot of cities, especially in Europe, when they're doing restorations of monuments, they, by law, have to put up these huge decorative tarps, very often mimicking the product that is going to be reconstructed or what is going to be preserved. You forfeited, you got $1 million or more from a developer who didn't live up to his promises. There's money there. Why don't we, in the meantime, at least use that money to embellish? Because it's going to take, whether it's 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Let's do something now. That's a suggestion.
So I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate that the money that was, the penalty that was kept for the demolition that never actually came to fruition, the building, that we have some funds allotted for there, and we have done some, but we can do more, and I encourage the next council to certainly do that. And I think you are right. Wood Avenue was a missed opportunity. It is a lot of concrete against a building of Westmount Square, which is a very mineral building to begin with. And the street trees on Sherbrooke Street, there's a few that didn't fare so well in the road reconstruction, so I think there's an opportunity to improve that as well now. But bump outs and the greenery, it works. It slows traffic, it's better for pedestrians. We see it works around schools. And so I encourage, as they move forward in all that planning, to continue putting those in the roads that we build, because we have, for the most part, done that.
Thank you. Question number one. I heard a couple of councillors here talk about affordability when they were discussing the whole Southeast project and how that was going to be an important element. So I want to ask specifically, because for me, affordability, there's 3 things that are going to really govern what's affordable. One is the price of the land, one is the price of the building costs, and the other one is the size of the units. And you have, when I say you, council, the city, we have power over all those 3, or certainly a portion.
Certainly on the Tupper parking lots where we own the land.
Yeah, so when we own the land, so my question is, are you going to be giving this land to whoever's going to be developing, and that'll be the affordable part of it? Are you going to be finally readapting or updating your building bylaws so that we're not building using wasteful techniques in Westmount? I've been on this for a long time. I think you know what I'm talking about, masonry and so on. It's needless, and we haven't changed that. And people are advocating or questioning the 550 whatever square feet as being something that is somehow inappropriate, but it is very much appropriate. We can live in smaller spaces, and that has to be encouraged and promoted. So what are you doing specifically to address those 3 things in the Southeast
And
project?
certainly, I think what Councillor Peart was trying to address before was allowing the flexibility, allowing the option, being less constraining. If there are, if you were to build, let's say, a Manoir Westmount version 2, those are small rooms. I know it well. My mother lives in one. I never thought my mother would be able to move from a house into that. And it's an incredible space. And it's an incredible, or I have nothing but wonderful things to say about it, but it gives a lot of seniors an option where they can stay in this community. And they don't have to leave the community that they've lived in, but it's a much smaller unit, obviously. So I think Councillor Peart does want to weigh in.
Just to the point of 550 square feet, I hope everybody in this room understands that is not something new. 550 square feet exists today.
All over.
It has existed from 2014 on the St. Catherine block. That has always been the way. The only difference is that we are not prescribing a maximum count of that unit type. But this is not new.
You say it's not new to that particular sector. It would be nice that if you adopt that citywide.
To change the zoning to allow for more.
For smaller units. If somebody wants to convert,
let's say 4998 de Maisonneuve, if they wanted to convert
wherever. Somebody wants to have a duplex and have a single a bachelor apartment, and it's 550. Right now it's 700 and something.
But this speaks to the point that we were talking about before, is that the work that is coming is really the important work. I mean, we're setting the parameters, and the work that will happen in particular on the lots that we own, I think is an incredibly exciting opportunity for the city of Westmount.
All right. My second question, thank you. And it's addressed to Councillor D'Amico. You were talking about how you wanted to kind of delay or postpone the vote because you want to put forward a quality project. I find that, I mean, if I were an urban planner, or if I worked for LeMay, or if I worked for the city, or if I worked for all the people who worked on this project, and I was told that assumes that what's there now is not a quality project, I find that a bit insulting and, I don't know, maybe even condescending.
Nor is it an architectural project that has been put forward.
Yeah, I mean.
Right, there's no project that there's no architecture that we're examining.
I understand, but what I think urban planners have been hired. LeMay is not a little rinky-dink shop. It's one of the more, I'm just finish my question, one of the largest firms in architecture with professionals who are well-respected. The urban planning department locally in Westmount here are made up of professionals. So we're never going to all agree on what is best. That's no matter how long this goes, whether you delay in 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, you're never going to get complete consensus. So you have to move forward with something. But to say that something is not quality, I have a hard time with that. I want to know what you mean by that.
No, it's my pleasure to answer your question. So I did congratulate the urban planning department on the quality of their work.
Mm-hmm.
So the work is of very good quality. What I'm saying in terms of quality is I have a public consultation. I would like to listen. I'm a listener. I listen to what people are telling me, and I'm listening to the developers. The developers think, the 3 that are in the newspaper, think that 2 towers is better than 4. I agree with that. I agree with height on St. Catherine.
You're missing the second
But
part of the letter.
the part of Dorchester that I don't agree with, I believe, after doing the public consultation on Lexington and Upper Lansdowne in my district, I believe that the residents of the district know very well what they understand their district best. So I do want to listen to them. And they're telling me that they would like to have lower height on Dorchester. So I'm saying it's a win-win. I'm listening to the developers on St. Catherine, and I'm listening to the residents of District 8. So for me, it's really a no-brainer, and I feel it'll be better quality if you listen to the residents and the developers who know the area best. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I did congratulate the urban planning department on the quality of their work. I do understand the work that's done. It's not easy to, when you play with densities, you're recalibrating. So if you're increasing the height there, you're decreasing it there. I understand that, and they've done a remarkable job. I've never questioned the quality of the work.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I've correctly answered
Yeah, no,
your question.
I understand. I hear what you're saying. Bottom line, though, you're not going to please everybody all the time. So please, I hope that you vote and get something moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next and final questions.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors.
Welcome.
Carol Christie Olson to Westmount Square. One, I want to thank you all. I know a lot of hard work, and I was remiss last time in pointing this out in the last meeting, went into this plan. And last time I stood up here and I said that I didn't think the plan was ready. And Mayor Smith, your response was, yes, it's ready, and it's ready for us to vote on September 8th. So imagine my surprise when I learned on Wednesday of last week, 4 days before the vote is set to be taken, that you're not ready.
Still working on it.
That the I's haven't been dotted and the T's haven't been crossed. There's still some uncertainties. And I think there are 2 councillors this evening that uttered 2 incredible truths. Councillor Pert, I'd like to thank you for your comment because it was honest. And your comment was, if it was not for an election, we would take more time. I think that is a very honest statement. Councillor D'Amico, you said the residents are the best to understand what happens in their district, in their sector. And if we look at what the people of the Southeast sector are saying, and particularly the residents in Sodo neighborhood, they're not in agreement with this plan, Councillor Smith, and they feel ignored. Apologies. They feel ignored. They feel they haven't been listened to. And they're upset with the current plan. And what they're asking is not scrapping the plan. It's amazing to me that they're still at this many years later, because they have been persistent, they have been vocal, and they have been very clear as to what they want. And so to say that we don't know is really disingenuous. So I guess I'm wondering, all these backroom changes that are being made in the final days. Well, there are changes that are being made, correct? That we will.
Which I was very clear about. I lowered the height. Okay, just.
So my question to you is, are those the only changes? Are there changes that have not been revealed here tonight that we will find out on September 18th? Or are there other changes that have been made? Any other insertions in this plan that have been made that were not pronounced here this evening?
The significant change that is being made is lowering the maximum height, keeping the minimum height of 3 stories, is lowering the maximum height on Dorchester, on the Tupper lots, on the lands that we own, from 7 stories to 6 stories. Those are the change. That is the significant change that has been made. That triggers a whole bunch of changes within all of the bylaws that we had adopted, so it takes some time to make sure that that's done properly. I could have, forced them to rush it. We have outside legal counsel that then reviews all of this and reviews all of the bylaws. They asked for more time. We granted more time for that. And it needs to conform. Would you like to address that? But I take issue with the notion that it's a backroom dealing, or that I'm somehow trying to hide.
But we don't know what those changes are until this evening, and we won't get a chance as a community to see those changes or comment on them before they're voted on.
We have heard many comments over the past 2 years. We've heard the feedback, and there comes a point. We were very clear about the timeline on this. It has been 2 years. It's been many more years that we have been discussing this, and that our role is to take decisions. Our role has been elected.
Your role is to represent the citizens.
And make decisions, and to vote on things, and to move things forward, and I
just don't think
I
the
don't
time
think for one
guarantees-
day that I haven't put in the very best effort to represent the citizens and to hear them and to find a plan that's going to work. And so some people may be opposed to height or certain heights. We have to be realistic as well as to what will actually solve the problem. Councillor Aronson. And then we're going to move on to the actual agenda.
I think it does bear commentary, because I don't believe we've ever commented on this, that we say we're bringing this forward on the original schedule, which is true. However, we actually have already done postponements much earlier in the process. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but way back in fall of 2024, we had an earlier deadline for public commentary. And there was an outcry.
It was December 31st. The library asked it to be postponed because it's during the holiday season. It's not a very realistic time to give people feedback.
Postponed.
It was
So we
postponed.
asked till the end of January,
right.
and we got 6 extra days, January 6th, 8th. So
There was a request.
I don't know that that's a strong point to.
Okay.
So I don't think we're going to
No,
change your
I'm not here
mind.
to argue. I guess I'm here to really bring up some important points.
And we listened, and we included, I'd like to just point out before we move on to the next part of the agenda.
I haven't finished my questions.
We included the Atwater Library
Yes.
as a stakeholder from the very beginning of this process, just like it was Alexis Neon or any of the other stakeholders in the area. It was very important to us that Atwater Library was there. This area, if it is revitalized, is absolutely going to benefit you. It's going to bring more people. It's going to bring more users, more people that can discover your library.
Yes, but as Nick Lucas said, it's not how dense you make it, it's how you make it dense. And he had showed us and this council that there were other solutions to height, to towers, to create density. And so far, I haven't seen that reflected in the revised plan. And one of the honest comments that was made by a developer at the June consultation was, the reason you need height is because you need views, because views sell. And that's the reality.
Thank you for your commentary.
So I have a question also for Councillor Gallery. You mentioned that the city has tools to absorb costs. Can you detail what those tools are? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, maybe some of those things we should understand before we vote this plan through. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the after the first question period. So if you are leaving, I would encourage you to do so now. Jeff, you got to calm down because it doesn't look good. OK, on va commencer avec numéro 4, c'est l'adoption de l'ordre du jour et c'est proposé par M. Aronson. C'est à vous.
Merci, Madame la mairesse.
I would just start. They'll,
All right.
I don't think anyone's too concerned about this part.
Fair enough. For those of us who remain, I move that the agenda of the regular council sitting of September the 8th, 2025 be adopted with the following addition. At item 6.6, the addition of the recommendations for an environmentally sustainable and climate resilient City of Westmount report.
Merci beaucoup. C'est appuyé par Conseiller Bostock. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 5, numéro 5, c'est encore M. Aronson, c'est approbation des procès-verbaux.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Oui, je propose que le procès verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil tenue le 4 août 2025 soit approuvé.
Est-ce que... Non, je pense que celui-là est retiré, donc je m'excuse. C'est pas celui-là, il faut faire des changements sur celui-là. OK, we're going to skip over number 5. Numéro 6, 6.1, la correspondance rapport au Conseil. Les 8 documents suivants sont déposés. La résolution numéro... Donne-moi 2 secondes. Sont différents. 150-08-2025 de la municipalité Remini dénonçant les déversements de dépôts illégaux au ministère de l'Environnement. Puis c'est le même document pour tous les 8 documents, c'est ça? Madame la greffière? Oui? Est-ce que je faut lire tous les 8 documents ou non? OK, donc c'est les 8 documents sont déposés, mais je peux juste noter à la fin, une pétition pour le revêtement de l'avenue Green après la fin des travaux de construction majeure en novembre 2025. This one is a petition that has been signed by residents of the area asking for the City of Montreal to repave the street after the major construction that has been on that, been ongoing for the past couple months on Green Avenue. So thank you to the residents that took the time to deposit that petition. Numéro 6.2, c'est le rapport de la main-d'œuvre. C'est Conseiller Chamy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The workforce report for the month of July 2025 is now tabled.
Merci beaucoup. 6.3, c'est le registre des paiements. C'est Conseiller D'Amico.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. La liste des paiements pour 2025 est déposée.
Merci beaucoup. 6.4, list of approvals in virtue of bylaw 1507 is again Councillor Chamy.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Conformément au règlement 1507 sur la délégation de pouvoir à certains employés de la Ville de Westmount, la liste d'autorisation de dépenses pour le mois de juillet 2025 est maintenant déposée.
Merci beaucoup. 6.5, c'est la liste des facturations des droits de mutation. Councillor D'Amico.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The list of duties on transfers for the month of July 2025 are tabled.
Thank you. 6.6, I know Councillor Aronson is very happy to table this. Recommendations for an environmentally sustainable and climate resilient city of the City of Westmount report. 6.6.
6.6, the recommendations for an environmentally sustainable and climate resilient City of Westmount report of the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee is hereby tabled.
Merci beaucoup. Item number 7. So do you want to have any commentary on that?
Absolutely, I do. I'll keep it short, though. This
Given
was
it's
the
9:26, but yes.
9:26. Look, this was a report that was put together through the hard work of citizens who came forward. A huge number of citizens volunteered to sit on this committee. We were very lucky to have had some extremely bright and extremely talented people contribute to the work of this committee. And I'm extraordinarily proud of the work that we were able to put together and the recommendations that we brought forward here. As I said in my earlier comments, this is not the end of the work of this advisory committee or of the city with respect to improving how the city's operations and the things that we do on this territory have an impact on our environment for all of us and for the future. It's the beginning. This is not the first time that we've had recommendations and reports and things of this nature brought forward. But I do believe, looking back on the previous iterations, this is the first time that an effort has been made to do these types of reports in a manner that would allow the administration of the city to approach these policy objectives in a comprehensive and coordinated fashion across multiple departments, and to provide clear, direct, and transparent reporting of progress on those objectives to the citizenry of Westmount. These recommendations were developed with the idea in mind that we need a roadmap, not just a list. And so as you review them and read them and absorb them, I do hope that, like I said before, they inspire all of us at this table, all the candidates who are running in the next election, and the administration and professionals of the city to all pull together and move in the same direction towards improving how we conduct our affairs with a light touch on the environment and to improve everything that we do for future generations. And finally, just one last thing. I just want to specifically thank Jessica Winton and Mira Katnick and Ross Brown and Councillor Dubinko, who were the other members of the committee who were with us through the entire process, as well as Laura Butler and Mr. Dufour, who unfortunately I think has left the room, who were contributors and sat on the committee until they were unable to continue. So thank you,
Thank
Council.
you,
Thank you,
Councillor Aronson,
committee.
for all of your hard work on this important committee.
Thanks for letting me have a final word on it. Thanks, bye.
Item number 7, numéro 7, Affaires générales et administration, modification au calendrier des séances du Conseil pour l'année 2025. This is Councillor Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the 2025 schedule of regular sittings be attended so that the October sitting is held on Wednesday, October 1st, 2025 at noon.
Yes, so this is an adjustment. It is Yom Kippur. On that day, we legally have to have a council meeting within the month of October. So we had scheduled it ages ago for that evening and then had realized, and thanks to a resident who raised it as well, that it would be more ideal to have it during the day. So we have to have it, we have very little window. It has to be on the 1st or the 2nd. So we're trying to accommodate that. So it's on the 1st at noon, which will be the last council meeting of this council. We? Oh, okay. All in favor? I was like, oh, God. All in favor? Carried. Item number 8, so seconded by Councillor Aronson. Item number 8, Finance, Concordance, and short-term resolution relating to a $15,250,000 bond loan to be issued on October 14th, 2025. This is Councillor D'Amico.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Entendu que, conformément au règlement d'emprunt suivant et pour les montants indiqués en regard de chacun d'eux, la Ville de Westmount souhaite émettre une série d'obligations, soit une obligation par échéance, pour un montant total de 15 250 000 qui sera réalisé le 14 octobre 2025, reparti comme suit. Règlement d'emprunt numéro 1624 pour un montant de 13 450 000. Règlement d'emprunt numéro 1627 pour un montant de 1,8 million. Attendu qu'il y a lieu de modifier les règlements d'emprunt en conséquence, entendu que, conformément au premier alinéa de l'article 2 de la loi sur les dettes et emprunts municipaux, le RLRQ chapitre D-7, pour les fins de cette émission d'obligations et pour les règlements d'emprunt numéro 1624 et 1627, la Ville de Westmount souhaite émettre pour un terme plus court que celui originalement fixé à ces règlements. I move that the borrowing bylaws referred to in the first paragraph of the preamble be financed through bonds as follows. The bonds, namely one bond per maturity date, will be dated October 14, 2025. Interest will be payable semi-annually on April 14 and October 14 of each year. The bonds will not be redeemable prior to maturity. However, they may be redeemed with the consent of the holders in accordance with the Act respecting municipal debts and loans, the CQLR Chapter D-7. The bonds will be registered in the name of CDS Clearing and Depository Services, Inc., CDS, and will be deposited with CDS. CDS will act on behalf of its participants as a book entry agent, bondholder agent, paying agent, and transaction agent with respect to its participants. CDS will transfer funds in accordance with the legal requirements of the bond. To this end, the Council authorizes the clerk treasurer or treasurer to sign the document required by the Canadian banking system entitled Business Pre-Authorized Debit Plan Authorization. CDS will make principal and interest payments to participants by electronic funds transfer, and for this purpose, CDS will directly debit the required amounts from the following account. Banque Nationale du Canada, succursale 10701, 1246 Avenue Green, Westmount, Quebec, H3Z2A3, and that the bonds be signed by the mayor and the clerk treasurer or treasurer. The City of Westmount, as permitted by law, has appointed CDS to act as authenticating fiscal agent, and the bonds will only come into effect once they have been authenticated. I also move that with respect to the annual capital repayment scheduled for the years 2031 and thereafter, the term provided for in borrowing bylaws 1624 and 1627 shall be shorter than that originally set, that is, for a term of 5 years, commencing on October 14, 2025. Instead of the term prescribed for such amortization, each subsequent issue being for the balance or part of the balance due on the loan.
Thank you very much, Councillor D'Amico, seconded by Councillor Shammy. Do you want to add any more comments to this? It's pretty descriptive. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Item number 9, reserve surplus for the library, proposed expenditures. Councillor Roux.
Thank you. So you'll allow me to read the whereases because it's a nice story and it will explain what this is about. So whereas the City of Westmount's Public Library received a donation of $55,000 in December 2023, which is to be used for the library's projects and its users. Whereas the donation of $55,000 has been transferred to the reserved surplus account for the library, Resolution 2025-03-054. Whereas the library interim director wishes the surplus to be allocated to the production of a bilingual documentary, Portraits Sonores, and the purchase of equipment for the Makerspace studio. Whereas the documentary Portraits Sonores is currently in production and will cost $30,440, whereas the equipment for the Makerspace studio will be purchased by the end of 2025 for an amount of approximately $24,560. I move that these amounts be allocated to the production of a bilingual documentary, Portraits Sonores, and the purchase of equipment for the Makerspace studio, as indicated in the information included in decision-making file 5295.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor D'Amico. Do you want to add any more contents to this?
Yes, if you
the victim of its own success, this makerspace.
Exactly. And so sometimes donations, I mean, we don't get donations like this that often. If you know of anyone who wants to make donations, please feel very comfortable to think about the library. We're very comfortable, very conscientious about how we spend it. So sometimes these donations are anonymous. I was told that this one isn't. So it was the generosity of Francis Jesse Hodge, who died in Montreal on May 11th, 2022. Maybe some of you knew her. I didn't have the privilege. She was born in Westmount, but traveled quite a bit, and I thought it was interesting. She lived in London while working as an editor for Vogue magazine. So it seems she has a really interesting life, and she's explored the world. So at the beginning of the Portrait Sonore, there will be more about her. So I've had more, but I'll leave it at that. But I'm sure we're all going to want to find out about her. The Portrait Sonore, it's going to be great for the library because it's really a history that they're gathering information and something that will stay. The city did the Portrait Sonore with the religious institutions in Westmount. So they're great.
They're excellent.
Yeah, it will attract people probably because the library is the library.
Oui.
Just one quick comment. It's very important also to be in philanthropy, to put it in your will if you wish to leave something to the city of Westmount. So always think of the city of Westmount in your will, and we'd gladly appreciate the donation. Thank you. Maybe Jeff Shammy will speak to
the Cedars.
Thank you very much. And that was seconded, I think, by Councillor D'Amico had seconded that. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for the explanation.
Madame
Oui.
Donor.
Yes, thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Item number 10 is again for the library, additional funds, Westmount Library purchases from overdrive for the year 2025. And again, is Councillor Roux.
Oui, alors ici, je vais dispenser avec les attendus que. Je propose que le Conseil autorise l'achat de livres électroniques, de magazines électroniques et de livres audio électroniques auprès de Overdrive pour un montant maximal de 63 000 $.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Conseiller D'Amico. Encore, il n'y a pas
J'ai rien à dire là-dessus.
OK, parfait.
On continue à offrir des bons services aux résidents.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 11, les affaires contractuelles, demande de proposition service de remorqueuse pour la saison hivernale 2025-2026, DDP 2025-012. C'est le conseiller Bostock.
I move to authorize an expenditure of $77,270.80, including tax credits for the service of 2 tow trucks for the 2025-2026 winter season. Request for proposals DDP 2025-012. Award to Remorquage Dave 779-5211 Canada, Inc. The contract for this purpose in the amount of its bid for a maximum amount of $84,621.60. Taxes included in accordance with the contractual documents of Request for Proposals DDP 2025-012. And to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in the decision-making file number 5327.
Merci beaucoup. Seconded by Councillor Gallery. Any further comments? Tow trucks?
Don't park your car when there's snow removal and you won't get towed.
All in favor? Carried. Awarding of contract professional accounting audit services, PUB 2025-036.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I didn't see Mr. Shammy. Thank you.
Ça, c'est le conseiller D'Amico. Oh, all in favor, again, sorry, show your hands. Item number 12, awarding of a contract professional accounting audit services, PUB 2025-036, is Councillor D'Amico.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Entendu que le 6 août 2025, une ouverture publique des soumissions a eu lieu pour des services professionnels d'experts en audit comptable, appel d'offres public PUB-2025-036, tel qu'il apparaît de sommaire d'ouverture des soumissions préparées par le service de greffe de la Ville, lequel est déposé lors de cette séance. Attendu que cet appel d'offres vise l'audit externe des états financiers de la Ville pour les exercices financiers 2025 à 2029, attendu qu'après l'analyse des soumissions reçues, la firme Deloitte S5RL SRL est le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, attendu que la soumission de la firme Deloitte S5RL SRL est au montant de 314 209 taxes incluses, I move to authorize an expenditure of $314,209, including taxes, for the professional accounting audit services for the years 2025 to 2029, public call for tenders PUB-2025-036, to award the contract to Deloitte Saint-Crel SRL for this purpose at the price stated in its bid for a maximum amount of $314,209, including taxes, all in accordance with the contractual documents of Public Call for Tenders, PUB-2025-036, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information provided in decision-making file number 5345.
Merci beaucoup. Seconded by Councillor Roux. Do you have any further comments, Councillor D'Amico?
Yeah, the only comment is this is over several years. It's not an amount for just 1 year, so it's over several years.
Okay, thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Roux. All in favor? Carried. Item number 13, awarding of a contract purchase of a new street sweeper, PUB 2025-038. C'est Conseiller Chamy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Why he's
I move to
moving the streets.
authorize an expenditure of $356,735.49, including tax credits for the purchase of a new compact street sweeper, public call for tenders PUB 2025-038, to award the contract to Cubex Limited for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $390,671.87, including taxes, all in accordance with the contractual documents of the public call for tender, PUB 2025-038, and finally, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information provided in decision-making file 5338.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Councillor D'Amico. Any further comments? No. All in favor? Carried. Item number 14, we had discussed this before. Octroi de contrat de reconstruction des trottoirs du côté nord de la rue Sainte-Catherine entre l'Avenue Wood et la limite est de la ville PUB 2025-040. Et c'est Councillor Bostock.
I move to authorize an expenditure of $417,093.20, including tax credit, for the reconstruction of sidewalks on the north side of St. Catherine Street between Wood Avenue and the eastern city limit. Public call for tenders, PUB 2025-040. I move to award the contract to Les Entreprises Ventec Inc. for this amount at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $456,771.53, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents in the call for public tenders, PUB 2025-040, and to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making file number 5344.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Kez. All in favor? I think we'd already discussed this file before. Item number 15, awarding of contract structural reinforcement for the hoist in the electrical cable reel warehouse, PUB 2025-041. And this is Councillor Chamy.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. I move to authorize an expenditure of $183,623.14, including tax credits for the structural reinforcement of a hoist in the electrical cable reel warehouse, public call for tender PUB 2025-041, and to award the contract to Construction Maddox Inc. for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $201,091.28, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents of the public call for tender PUB 2025-041. And finally, Madam Mayor, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file 5335.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Gallery. Any further comments on this? No? All right. All in favor? Item number 16, awarding of contract rental of 12-wheel trucks with operators for snow removal. C'est des opérateurs pour chargement de la neige, PUB 2025-043. Et ça, c'est Conseiller Chamy encore. Je ne sais pas pourquoi c'est
I
pas
don't know why
Madame
it's me
Bostock.
tonight, but I'm happy to do snow. Madam Mayor, I move to authorize an expenditure of $1,818,322.62, including tax credits, for the rental of 12-wheel dump trucks with operators for snow loading, transportation, public call for tenders, PUB 2025-043, for 3 winter seasons. Remember, this is for 3 years. And to award this contract for the purpose to Les Entreprises PEP 2000 Inc. at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $1,991,300.31, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents of public call for tender PUB 2025-043, and finally, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file 5326.
Merci beaucoup, appuyé par Councillor D'Amico. So for those who don't know, this is snow operations are extremely costly. They're a major component of our public works budget. And this is the rental of the trucks. They are not our drivers. They are not our employees that load, the snow is loaded out onto those trucks and they are taken to the various snow dumps throughout the city. But one challenge that we see year after year is that we award these contracts a little bit earlier than people to lock them in, earlier than other cities to lock them in. But there is an increasing challenge in terms of having trucks available and truck drivers available for the snow loading operations. So that's why we try and get this organized in advance. But it is a major, major cost of our public works operations. And this is just one tiny fraction of it, because this does not include our own trucks, and it doesn't include the overtime and the hours of our own drivers. So when you add that all together and you leave your car on the street, and it needs to be towed, when you delay that by however many minutes, you are adding thousands of dollars in cost to the city. So, merci beaucoup. That was seconded by Councillor D'Amico. All in favor? Carried. Awarding of a contract, complete roof replacement. Donc, je lis en français, au lieu de octroi d'un contrat déneigement de divers stationnement PUB 2025-045. I think there's some wording challenges in the English version. Donc, numéro 17, c'est Madame Bostock.
I spend all the money. I move to authorize an expenditure of $281,141.82, including tax credit for de-icing, snow removal, and clearing of snow from parking lots owned and maintained by the city. Public call for tenders, PUB 2025-045, for 3 winter seasons, 2025-26, 26-27, and 27-28. To award the contract to Entrepreneur Paysagiste Strathmore Limited for this purpose at the bid price for a maximum amount of $307,886.94. Taxes included, all in accordance with the contractual documents of the public call for tenders, PUB 2025-045, and to charge this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making file number 5329.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Aronson. This is again for the public lots. These are not the trucks that are cleared, that are our own trucks clearing. But it is important to remember in Westmount we do have an obligation to have side rails on all of our trucks as a safety measure. So this is an outside contractor that does some of our parking lots. So seconded by Councillor Aronson, and all in favor? Carried. Item number 18, awarding of contract. Do you want to? Oh, okay. 18, awarding of a contract, snow clearing from laneways, PUB 2025-046. Again, some of our laneways are not done by our city employees.
I move to authorize an expenditure of $1,342,839.48, including tax credit, for the clearing, removal, and disposal of snow from city-owned and maintained lanes. Public call for tenders, PUB 2025-046, and to award the contract to, I'm going to choke, no, Entrepreneur Paysagiste Strathmore Limited for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $1,470,584.28. Taxes included, all in accordance with the contractual documents of public call for tenders, PUB 2025-046, and that the contract be awarded for the next 3 winter seasons, 25-26, 26-27, 27-28, charge this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making file number 5328.
Merci beaucoup. Seconded by Councillor Gallery again. I think that's pretty straightforward for the lanes. So all in favor? Carried. Item number 19, c'est l'octroi d'un contrat carnet de santé pour les bâtiments municipaux 2025 PUB 2025-047. This is Councillor Peart. This is an important item.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. Everything's important.
Everything is important. This is a very important item, and one of which I'm very proud of for the work we have done on municipal buildings.
Yes. So, since it's so important, I will read the whereases. Whereas on August 13th of 2025, a public tender opening was held for the preparation of condition report cards for municipal buildings. Public call for tenders PUB-2025-047. Whereas after analysis of the bids received, TB Maestro Inc. is the lowest compliant bidder. Whereas TB Maestro Inc.'s bid in the amount of $60,361.88, taxes included, for the first 5 lots identified. I move to authorize an expenditure of $55,111.44, including tax credit, for the preparation of condition report cards for municipal buildings, public tender PUB 2025-047. To award TB Maestro Inc. the contract for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $60,361.88, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents of the public call for tenders, PUB-2025-047. To allocate this expense in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file number 5333.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Councillor D'Amico. Do you want to add any further information on that?
So as the mayor suggested, we have a lot of buildings, and part of our responsibility is to make sure those buildings are well maintained. And the first step in doing that is to establish the actual conditions of all of our buildings. And the first step in doing that is this awarding of the contract for 5 properties. And this company will come in and do a very methodological check and verification of the state of our buildings, and that will set us up for the next phase of deciding what to prioritize and when to time it, and to have an idea of what those costs will be. So
yeah, and so just to add further to that, obviously over the past couple of years, there has been a significant investment in the maintenance of City Hall. The water used to pour in through the windows. The windows were completely rotten. The masonry needed work. The roof had to be replaced. And it's tough. You don't always want to invest in the buildings where citizens aren't. And we have invested in our buildings, in our library and Victoria Hall and WRC, but it's the maintenance that is critical to ensuring that we don't have greenhouses that fall down and things like that. So it is, this is a continued important step in what we have done, which is really invested in the past couple of years in some of the maintenance. And just a heads up to people, the work at Public Works and the requirement of the Public Works buildings is significant and costly and important, because it is where the majority of our employees are, and it is where our trucks are stored. It's where our salt, our equipment, all of it is stored there, and that is going to need a very, very significant investment. Donc, avec ça, so it was seconded by Councillor D'Amico, I believe. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item number 20, I believe Councillor Peart is going to recuse himself. Conflicts with his day job. So, awarding of a contract, professional services for the development of a maintenance master plan for Hydro Westmount, PUB 2025-048, and this is Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to authorize an expenditure of $107,500, including tax credits, to obtain a professional services for the development of a 10-year maintenance master plan for Hydro Westmount's electrical network, public call for tender PUB 2025-048, and to award to Brutzelet Parizeau Inc., the contract for this purpose, at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $123,598, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents of public call for tender, POB 2025-048, and finally, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file number 5332.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor D'Amico. Do you want to add further comments onto this? This is also an incredible, we have been working at this one for a very long time, and as many have seen in our capital works budgets, we, year after year, have had to increase the investment in Hydro Westmount. It's critical, but this is a longer-term plan of how we are going to manage that and what the future of that will bring. So it is seconded by Councillor D'Amico, moved by Councillor Shammy. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Councillor Peart can come back in the room. Awarding of a contract, collection and transport of garden waste. Councillor Aronson, numero 21.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to do something different and skip the whereases because I've already said enough. Every once in a while. So I move to authorize an expenditure of $110,694.20, including tax credit, for the collection and transportation of garden waste. Public call for tenders PUB 2025-049. I further move to award Services Recova Incorporated the contract for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $121,224.58, taxes included, in accordance with the contractual documents of call for public tenders, public call for tenders, PUB 2025-049. And finally, I move to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained within decision-making file number 5320.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Conseiller Peart. Do you have other comments on this?
It's garden waste. We pay a lot of money to have it picked up, but it gets composted and it's good for everybody.
Perfect. All in favor? Item number 22, octroi d'un contrat service professionnel pour la caractérisation environnementale des sols d'hiver de la ville de Westmount, PUB 2025-050. C'est Conseiller Aronson again.
2 for 2.
2 for 2. Got ahead of myself. Right. So again, I'm going to skip the whereases and go right to, I move to approve an expenditure of $133,557.91, including tax credit for the professional services for the environmental characterization of soils in various locations in the city of Westmount. This is public call for tenders PUB 2025-050. I further move to award to Genevation Incorporated, otherwise known as 9152-4629 Quebec Incorporated, the contract for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $146,666.71, taxes included, all in the accordance with the contractual documents of public calls for tenders, PUB 2024-050. Sorry, that's a typo. 2025-050. And I further allocate this expenditure. I further move to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file number 5319.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Madame Gallery. Pretty clear. Do you have any further comments? No?
We do this every year. We just make sure that we test soil around the city to make sure we know if and where there is any kind of contaminant.
Item number, seconded by Councillor Gallery. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item number 23, awarding of contract program for clearing vegetation around medium voltage and low voltage lines, PUB 2025-051, is Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I authorize an expenditure of $100,000, including tax credits, for the program for clearing vegetation around medium voltage and low voltage power lines, public call for tender PUB 2025-051, and to award Ilago BDC Inc. the contract for this purpose at the price of its bid for a maximum amount of $114,975, including taxes, all in accordance with the contractual documents of Public Tender 2025-051, and finally, to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information contained in Decision-Making File 5276.
C'est beau, seconded by Councillor Roux. This is an important part of the maintenance around our lines done by Hydro. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 24 is Councillor Kess et une création d'un bon de commande Norton Rose Fulbright, SENCRL, dossier 1-28-6696, Tribunal administratif du travail. Councillor Kess.
Thank you, Madame Mayor. Whereas the City of Westmount is the defendant in a litigation under number 128-6696 of the Tribunal administratif du travail, whereas the legal department wishes to create a purchase order to pay the fees of the lawyers representing the city in this matter, namely the law firm Norton Rose Fulbright, whereas the legal department recommends, in order to pay the past invoices on file, allocating an amount of $67,291.93, taxes included, to a purchase order. I move that the purchase order be opened with Norton Rose Fulbright to pay the legal fees related to file number 128-6696, that an amount of $61,446.51 taxes credit for a maximum total of $67,291.93, taxes included, be granted in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file 5325.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Bostock. I don't think we need any further comments on that.
No, this is just
Or do you want to give further comments on that?
we retain the services of Norton Rose while representing Hydro Westmount before the Administrative Labor Tribunal in the context of application or transfer imputation of from Quantum Electronic Inc.
Merci beaucoup. Seconded by Councillor Bostock. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 25, creation of purchase order IMK SENCRL, dossier 517 098516 175. Councillor Kez again.
All right. Whereas the City of Westmount is the plaintiff in the litigation under file number 500-17-098516-175 of the Superior Court of the Judicial District of Montreal, whereas the legal department wishes to create a purchase order to cover the legal fees of the lawyer representing the city in the matter, namely the law firm IMK, whereas the legal department recommends, in order to pay the outstanding invoices and upcoming ones, to allocate amount of $15,748.13, taxes included, to a purchase order for the current file. I move that a purchase order be opened with IMK to pay the legal fees related to file number 500-17-098516-175, that an amount of $15,748.13, taxes included, be granted in accordance with the financial information contained in decision-making file 1523. That the city clerk be authorized to sign any document necessary to ensure the city's defense, including any action as a city's representative in the said matter.
Merci beaucoup. Seconded by Councillor Gallery again. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 26, contract amendment, modification d'un contrat, reconstruction de l'avenue Forden et de Forden Crescent, PUB 2025-012. Ça, c'est Conseiller Peart. Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. I move that an additional amount of $87,977.26, including tax credit, $96,346.56, including taxes, be allocated to the contract for the reconstruction of Forden Avenue and Forden Crescent, public call for tenders PUB-2025-012, awarded to Eurovia Quebec, Inc. That the contract awarded to Eurovia Quebec, Inc. under this call for tenders be increased to $4,142,902.51, including taxes. That this expenditure be charged in accordance with the financial information provided in decision-making files number 5080, 5267, and 5337.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Roux, perhaps, from Fort, oh, no, you don't want to do that one. Councillor Shammy. All in, it's an additional on the contingency, which is fairly common in projects of this size.
Indeed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 27, contract amendment. Again, this is another contract amendment for the resurfacing of Wood Avenue between St. Catherine Street and de Maisonneuve Boulevard. PUB 2025-032 is again Councillor Peart.
I move that an
Similar
additional amount of $24,567.08, including tax credit, $26,904.15, including taxes, be allocated for the contract to resurface Wood Avenue between St. Catherine Street and de Maisonneuve Boulevard, PUB-2025-032 to Les Entreprises VENTEC, that the contract awarded to Les Entreprises VENTEC, Inc. under this call for tenders be increased to $1,070,936.42, taxes included, that this expense be allocated in accordance with the financial information included in decision-making file number 5364.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Shammy. This is, again, a slight increase on the contingency. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item number 28, cancellation of a call for tenders, PUB 2025-0039 is Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll read the whereases. Whereas on July 30th, a public tender opening was held for a project to modernize the HR and payroll systems, public call for tender PUB 2025-039. Whereas the financial evaluation of the bids received revealed that the amounts proposed were significantly higher than the initial estimates published on the SCAO, exceeding the allowable tolerable margins. And whereas the substantial discrepancy requires the city to review its project and administrative requirements, I move, Madam Mayor, that the public call for tender PUB 2025-039 be now canceled and that no contract be awarded at this regard.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor D'Amico. Fairly straightforward. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 29, again, a termination of contract PUB arboricultural work for tree felling and stump removal is Councillor Peart.
For this, I will read the whereases. Whereas on June 9th of 2025, contract PUB 2024-049 was awarded to Alberta NB Inc. for arboricultural work involving tree felling and stump removal by resolution of the council. Whereas the work under this contract officially began on June 18th of 2025, but was interrupted on July 25th of 2025. Whereas several issues were raised during the execution of this contract, whereas the parties have decided to terminate this contract by mutual agreement, whereas the city has already taken steps to ensure continuity of services and respond to urgent needs, I move that the council recognize the termination of the contract awarded to Alberta NB Inc. for tree removal and stump removal work, PUB-2024-049.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Bostock. I think it's fairly straightforward. All in favor? Carried. Now we get to the urban planning section, tabling of the Planning Advisory Committee minutes, August 2025, dépôt des procès-verbaux des assemblées du Comité consultatif d'urbanisme, le CCU pour août 2025. Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je propose que le Conseil prenne acte et accepte le dépôt des procès-verbaux du Comité consultatif d'urbanisme, le CCU, pour les assemblées suivantes. Assemblée ordinaire tenue les 5 et 7 août 2025. Assemblée spéciale tenue le 5 août 2025. C'est les demandes de dérogation mineure.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Madame Gallery. All in favor? Carried. Item number 31, approval of site planning architectural integration programs is again Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je propose que le Conseil donne suite et aux recommandations du Comité consultatif d'urbanisme, le CCI, tel qu'énoncé au procès-verbal de l'Assemblée ordinaire tenue les 5 et 7 août 2025 et qu'il approuve à l'égard de chacun de les plans et les conditions de délivrance de permis attachés aux items figurant à la liste ci-dessous. tel qu'évalué conformément au règlement 1305 sur les plans d'implantation et d'intégration d'architecturale.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Councillor Gallery. Anything, it's a lot of windows and doors.
Indeed.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 32 is a minor exemption application for 28 Willow Avenue. Is again Councillor Peart.
I think it's me.
Oh, it's Councillor Gallery, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will read the whereases. Whereas the City of Westmount Bylaw 1576 on minor exemptions was adopted on September 20th, 2021. Whereas a minor exemption must comply with the planning program. Whereas the exemption must be considered minor in quantitative terms, in terms of environmental impact and architectural terms. Whereas the application of the regulatory provisions targeted by the application causes serious harm to the person requesting the minor exemption. Whereas the exemption shall not hinder the owner of neighboring properties in the enjoyment of their rights of ownership. Whereas the exemption does not exasperate safety or public health risks or affect the quality of the environment or general well-being. Whereas the minor exemption application for 28 Willow Avenue aims to allow the construction of a 3.66 meter or 12-foot deep deck located less than 6.10 meters, 20 feet from the rear lot line, even though point 2 of subdivision 5.3.3 of zoning bylaw 1303 stipulates that the minimum depth of the uncovered rear yard space shall be 6.10 meters or 20 feet when the height of the rear wall is 7.62 meters or 25 feet or less. Whereas the minutes of the special meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee, PAC, held on July 2nd, 2025 were tabled at this meeting, and whereas PAC has issued an opinion on this application as set out in the minutes of its special meeting on a minor exemption applications held on July 2nd, 2025. I move, Madam Mayor, that the above preamble forms an integral part of this resolution, that Council approve the application for a minor exemption aiming to allow the construction of a 3.66 meter, 12-foot deep deck located less than 6.10 meters or 20 feet from the rear lot line, even though point 2 of subdivision 5.3.3 of zoning bylaw 1303 stipulates that the minimum depth of the uncovered rear yard space shall be 6.1 meters or 20 feet when the height of the rear wall is 7.62 meters or 20 feet, 25 feet or less.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Councillor Gallery, seconded by Councillor Peart. I think it's pretty thorough, and it's the tool that we have to give the minor exemption now. So all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 33, Inventory of Buildings with Heritage Value, Cultural Heritage Act, is Councillor Peart.
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse, for this one because it is unique. I will read the whereases. Whereas Section 120 of the Cultural Heritage Act, CQLR, Chapter P-9.002, requires the adoption and updating of an inventory of buildings constructed before 1940 that have heritage value. Whereas the Montreal agglomeration has prepared an inventory of buildings constructed before 1940 that have heritage value for the 34 localities on the island, namely 19 boroughs and the 15 related municipalities. Whereas it is necessary for the Municipal Council of the City of Westmount to take note of the list prepared and attached to this resolution and to accept it, I move that the Municipal Council accept the list prepared by the Montreal agglomeration regarding the inventory of buildings constructed before 1940 within the territory of the City of Westmount and having heritage value. That this list be accepted as the inventory required under Section 120 of the Cultural Heritage Act, CQLR, Chapter P-9.002.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Gallery. Do you want to add any further comments to this and the work that?
So this is a requirement, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is just the base level requirement that we need to satisfy. And I think we can all agree that Westmount, in its history of heritage protection, can do more than the base requirement. And I hope and expect that the future council will take on the task of adding to this inventory and adding our own personal touch of quality and improvement over the years.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Item number 34, Notice of Motion Bylaw 1644, authorizing an expenditure of a loan of $17,500,000 for various roadworks, water main, and sewer projects. Councillor Shammy to give notice of motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I give notice of motion of the intention to submit for adoption at a subsequent sitting of council, bylaw number 1644 entitled, "A Bylaw Authorizing an Expenditure and a Loan of $17,500,000 for Various Roadwork, Water Main, and Sewer Projects." The purpose of this bylaw is to allow for the execution of various roadwork, water main, sewer projects financed through a loan of $17,500,000. A copy of this draft bylaw is available for consultation.
Merci beaucoup. Given this notice of motion, we don't need to vote on this, but one thing I can say for certain is the infrastructure work that is required in this city is astronomical. The costs are astronomical, and it is something that we have looked at very, very seriously, but there is, nothing is a nice to do at this point. It is all urgent work that we are doing and that we have taken on this year. So, next notice of motion, bylaw 1645, authorizing capital expenditures and a loan of $5 million for the refurbishment of municipal buildings. Councillor Shammy, again, a notice of motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I give notice of motion of the intention to submit at a later sitting of council bylaw 1645 entitled, "A Bylaw Authorizing Capital Expenditures and a Loan of $5 million for the Refurbishment of Municipal Buildings." And the purpose of this bylaw is to authorize borrowing and authorize expenditures of up to $5 million for the refurbishment of municipal buildings. A copy of this draft bylaw is now available for consultation.
Merci beaucoup.
Bless you.
That brings the agenda to an end. Is there another?
Madam Mayor, the point 5 we can get back to. It's for the procès-verbal for the council and not the GC meeting. So we can
C'était le
adopt
procès.
it.
Je m'excuse. OK, donc on va le faire. Approbation des procès-verbaux, c'est encore Councillor Aronson, numéro
All right.
5.
Looping back to the beginning, I move that the minutes of the regular council sitting that were held on August the 4th, 2025 be approved.
Merci beaucoup. That brings us to the end of the...
I think we need to vote on it.
We need to vote on it. Oh, God, we have questions online.
Yep.
Moved seconded by Councillor Gallery. All in favor?
Aye.
So now we will move to the questions online.
I'll be right back. Okay. So, Madam Mayor, first question from Malcolm McRae, 4350 Sherbrooke Street. Last November, the city had a public consultation at Victoria Hall hosted by Vélo Québec on the future of cycling in Westmount. When will the resulting report be made available?
So the report was done by Vélo Québec, and it will be, I feel like, next month? With the next council. But the report was done by Vélo Québec. It was not a report done by us. So it is being finalized, but we will make it available. But as one can imagine, Vélo Québec had a lot of suggestions of streets to put bike paths on. And obviously, we take into consideration that we have a hill. We have an east-west bike path that is heavily used. We have Westmount Avenue, Côte Saint-Antoine, and we know that we need to build out the network, or certainly this council understands that, but we have to do that very carefully. So it is not yet ready for, I guess it's not finished. So merci beaucoup pour la question. Next question.
From Frederick Garvan at 434 Victoria Street. Mayor Smith, I have one suggestion to make concerning the Sud-Est redevelopment. The use of air rights for the Atwater Library and Computer Center, a viable way to generate long-term cash flow for monetizing unused space. While the library has voiced concerns about the adjacent redevelopment plans, height and density, monetizing its own air rights could offer a long-term financial benefit without compromising the heritage site.
Thank you, Mr. Gervin. And we take seriously the heritage value of the Atwater Library, and it's why it has been, very explicit within the bylaws that we've adopted that it has to integrate. Councillor Peart, do you want to address air rights and monetizing them?
Yeah, as best as I dare. If I understand the question correctly, what I suspect the resident is suggesting is that the owners of the Atwater Library find a way to monetize their airspace and maybe transfer that airspace at a cost to an adjacent property owner. To my understanding, that is permissible by Quebec law, but haven't seen a precedent for that, nor is that something that we are actively considering at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gervin, for your question.
Donc, question de Samuel Dubé, 650 Belmont Avenue. Bonjour, l'an dernier, nous avons bénéficié du programme de détection de plomb dans l'eau mis en place par la Ville de Westmount. Lorsque nous avons reçu les résultats positifs à l'automne 2024, on nous a indiqué qu'un deuxième test plus poussé serait effectué à l'été 2025 pour savoir d'où le plomb provenait exactement. Quand j'ai fait le suivi ces dernières semaines, on m'a indiqué qu'il fallait plutôt reprendre le processus du début et recommencer avec un test de base parce que c'est une autre entreprise qui a obtenu le contrat de détection de plomb cette année. Trouvez-vous cette situation normale? À mes yeux, cela ressemble à un gaspillage de fonds publics.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Je comprends vos inquiétudes. Nous avons une nouvelle entreprise qui a effectué les prélèvements de plomb et un autre laboratoire qui réalise les analyses. Donc, les tests étant accrédités, l'entreprise doit suivre les directives strictes afin de se conformer aux réglementations gouvernementales. Comme il s'agit d'une nouvelle entreprise, nous pensons qu'il est préférable qu'elle procède selon les procédures normales, comme pour toutes les autres maisons analysées cette année. Donc, je comprends pourquoi vous avez des inquiétudes, mais ça, c'était la réponse que j'ai posé la même question que vous aujourd'hui. Prochaine question.
Okay, so bear with me. This one is a little long. From Jessica Winton, 657 Roslyn Avenue. I wanted to once again bring up the only glaring problem with the PPU. As it is outlined, the average size unit from within the plan currently sits at 85 square meter, which is not quite enough to be defined as family housing. The average unit size should be closer to 120 square meter as that is where the lack of housing supply currently sits. Vacancy rates for units smaller than 120 or 85 square meters sits much higher because they are expensive and not worth the money because you're often only a single person in this unit. However, larger units can not only fit more people per meter, but reduce the competition for market goers in all housing types as opposed to single bedroom or studio units. A 3-bedroom can fit 3 to 5 people as opposed to a studio unit achieving higher density with fewer units. Additionally, the city should prioritize completely eliminating parking minimums to allow for the new housing to be more affordable, as the average underground parking space is over $120,000. With that being said, is the city willing to mandate that developers follow these size guidelines to ensure that Westmount maintains its status as the place to raise a family?
Thank you very much for your question that you submitted online, and I think Councillor Peart had responded to this earlier in terms of that is the minimum requirement, and what we are looking for is a mix of housing that will be developed here and for options for people from all generations. So young people trying to move out into their new first place, for families, for seniors, and by having the minimum, it's not the maximum, that we feel that we are being less restrictive and allowing for more options. You want to elaborate on that anymore?
Yeah, because I think actually the residents inquiring about the 85 square meters, and the 85 square meters is not a prescription. It is a bit of it's a placeholder that the PPU used for its calculations. It's not suggesting that 85 meters, that we're only going to be asking for 85 square meter units across the board. But when determining what the density is, you have to start with an assumption. And the assumption here is that it's 85 square meters, and that's used only for calculation purposes. It's not being used as a prescription or a requirement in the PPU. There's a comment too about minimum parking requirements. That is already in the PPU, where we have eliminated minimum parking requirements across the sector. That means that nobody's obliged to build a $120,000 parking spot. It means the developer can choose if the markets, if their project works for it, but it doesn't force unnecessary construction of parking units, which only go to serve to elevate the cost of the project, making housing less affordable.
Thank you very much for your question. Next question online.
Question de Gilles Vaillancourt, qui n'a pas fourni d'adresse. Concernant l'antenne située au Belvédère Summit, à qui appartient cette antenne? Est-ce qu'un bail a été signé? Le cas échéant, quelle est sa durée? Combien rapporte-t-il? Et surtout, est-il envisageable de retirer cette antenne qui nuit à la beauté du paysage dans le cadre de la réfection du Belvédère prévue dans les prochaines années?
Merci beaucoup pour votre question et je comprends et je sais qu'il y a d'autres antennes dans la ville ou dans les autres parts de Montréal, mais celui-là appartient à la ville. Puis je pense que c'était installé il y a 2 ans ou presque 2 ans et c'est utilisé pour assurer la connectivité de certains de nos capteurs intelligents, notamment ceux liés à la gestion des infrastructures municipales comme les puissards. Cette connectivité est essentielle au bon fonctionnement de plusieurs services opérations de la ville, dont c'est à nous celui-là, ce n'est pas un Rogers où il y a des autres places sur l'île de Montréal qui a des antennes qui s'appartiennent à des gens, à des entreprises comme ça. Celui-là, c'est à la ville de Westmount. Mais je comprends le commentaire que c'est au Belvedere, mais on a besoin pour le moment. Prochaine question. Je pense que c'est peut-être la dernière.
As written one, yeah. From Diana Hernandez, 4840 St. Catherine West. In the Westman Independent of August 19th, 2025, a resident highlighted the absurdity of repairing concrete sidewalks with asphalt, what many call bubblegum repairs. This cheap, temporary method damages both the quality and appearance of our streets. He suggested we should fix what is broken and then maintain it. Yet this practice has continued for years across the Westmount administration. Now residents are being asked to support major redevelopment projects like the Southeast sector, as if this were proof of ethical and trustworthy management. Since employees were only following instructions, the responsibility rests with the mayor and administration. The long-term consequences of these bubblegum practices are still to come. The real question is, will residents accept the excuse "I didn't know," as in the case of Legault and the Saclick scandal?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm being called unethical, but I can explain to you that patches on concrete sidewalks, when there are damages to them, which there are from bombardiers and all sorts of various reasons of salt, and we use a lot of salt on our hills, that they cannot be done with concrete. They have to be done with asphalt because the concrete doesn't hold on that. And then every year, we do a lot of sidewalk work, as we've seen tonight. We're passing a section there. We obviously, when we rebuild streets, we rebuild all of our sidewalks as well. And the other comments are noted.
That's it.
Merci beaucoup. Il n'y a pas d'autres questions en ligne qui étaient envoyées. If there's more questions in the room at 10:30.
It's not on the Southeast, and it's not controversial. It's really just information.
Well, then you're very welcome, Ms. Marks.
It's just information from something that was said tonight. Municipal bonds used to be sold only to large purchasers like pension funds, not individuals. Are they currently allowed to be bought by individuals from any brokers? And if so, why don't we promote them? Municipal bonds are a very safe way to invest money.
Councillor
So if,
D'Amico,
in
do you want to
fact-
answer this?
I really don't have the information to respond to that. Maybe the Director General has the specifics. I unfortunately don't have the specifics. My understanding is that the public can purchase them, but I don't have the legal document, so I'm not able to confirm that.
Madame Mandeville?
I'd be very interested because in a lot of places, municipal bonds are very appealing for
Yeah.
residents to buy because they're a good investment and they're a very safe investment.
So in the U.S., municipal bonds are tax exempt. So it's
Absolutely,
a
not
great,
here.
and in Europe also, they're tax exempt, so it's a great way to encourage.
Exactly. But even here, they're a safe investment and they're a better return normally than GICs. So it'd be interesting to know, and it would be probably interesting to our residents.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Next question.
Yes. First, a very question on item 33. The list that is being put together for cultural heritage properties, is that available?
Yes, I think that will be made available.
So how does one access it? How do we access it?
We can make that, because we can make that public once we adopt it.
So that'll be sort of, when do you expect that to be made public? Oh, that works excellently. So maybe I can interact with you to get that. Okay. On the website? Even better, even better. Why is there so much controversy on the southeast sector? Asking this as an economist, obviously the place needs to be redeveloped, yes. Obviously we see that there is development happening around on the La Montagne, on Crescent, on Bishop, on the Carry opposite the hospital of 6, 8, 10 stories. So building 6, 8, 10 stories is eminently possible. Population is aware, as council must be aware, that once an upzoning is made, once you change the zoning to increase the height, it is next to impossible to reduce it, not because you can't actually pass the zonage, but because the developers, the owners of that property, will fight it tooth and nail. So, although pragmatically it's not possible, and obviously people are aware of that. So I ask the question, why is it that the developers are requiring 20 stories when elsewhere it's totally possible to do 8, 10 stories? And the answer that I got was really interesting. It was, we've held this land for 10, 15 years. We have to go and recoup our sunk costs. And we can't do that unless we build for 20 stories. And we can hold out until the city goes and grants it. Now, sunk costs in economics are really interesting because they have no economic rationale. What has been spent in the past has nothing to do with how you invest in the future. It's understandable that a developer wants to recoup his costs. But in terms of economic rationale, it has no place. It's how much is it going to cost in the future? So, in a sense, we, council, etc., are being held to ransom by developers for an understandable reason. They want the thing until such time as the council gives up and gives us the 20 stories so that we can recoup our costs. Now, there is a solution. You did ask for a solution, so let me propose one. First one is one that Councillor Pearce came out with, which makes perfectly good sense. We have on the south side of St. Catherine, 5 owners, 5 lots, all of whom would like to have a tower on their lot, one of which doesn't have enough room to have a tower anyway. The answer to that is straightforward. The 5 owners group together, create a corporation where each owner has a share of the corporation pro rata to the land area that they own. So we're dealing with one entity rather than with 5 separate entities. And that, with due respect, Conrad, is obviously an excellent idea and one that's already been raised. That bit works. The second bit is the zoning of St. Catherine that you're planning on doing on the 18th is probably not the best solution, with due respect, to this situation of developers wanting to recoup their costs. Rather, a better situation is to say, look, we understand the situation, the context. We, as council, are going to be happy to sit with you to try and work out a solution, and we will then change the zoning at that time when we have a concrete proposal to...
So, just to be clear...
let me finish. I'll not very much longer, I promise. Have a concrete proposal, and at that stage, we will discuss the changing of the zoning.
So
And
negotiate the zoning with the developers without going to the public or a public consultation. I make a side deal with the developers.
Quite.
I'd be interested in that question.
The third part, Madam Mayor, is if agreement is not reached, because they can hold out for another 9-10 years, if an agreement is not reached, then the council can go and take the hard line and say, fine, we will expropriate the land and go ahead with the PPP to ensure that development takes place. You don't need to actually do that. You have the threat of it that is there.
Well, we do have that option.
I know you have the option. And it's that option might well be a better option than, I use the word caving in, but try it less. Adjusting to the desire of the developers to recoup their sunk costs by allowing 20 stories when 10 stories works everywhere else. That you asked for a concrete suggestion, and I'm giving you a concrete suggestion.
I will hand it over to Councillor Peart in a second. Your suggestions are noted. There are 5 different lots there, 5 different owners with 5 different interests. We have known that all along. If this were an easy solution, it would have been done long ago. It hasn't been an easy solution, but you also asked at the beginning, why is there, division on this? Why is there disagreement on this from the public? Why is there feedback? Every single zoning change that has taken place while I have been on council
has been divisive.
Has been divisive. People have fought against the only investment in a public school in Westmount from the Quebec government in decades and decades and decades. They have fought against that. People have fought against transitioning office into housing on a building that's already built. So they have fought against people living in a built building. People have fought against 500 Claremont being a derelict building that is falling down, underutilized, and empty. That has been fought against. 425 Melville, 325 Melville's. That will stay with me. 325 Melville, let me tell you. 4898 de Maisonneuve. Every single time you bring it forward. And to think that a delay of this is going to not have those living in the towers of Westmount Square opposed to this is one of my favorite discoveries was that the opposition to Westmount Square was led by the person who had just finished developing the 4300. So we know this. We know it always brings division, but we have done this with the best interests of the community to rebuild this sector. And there will be changes. None of it's going to look like it looks in the book. Those are placeholders. But we need to set the table, and if those 5 owners come together and say we want to build 2 30-story towers, which is what they would need to do, then they can come forward with that. And if there's 1 owner, then they can come forward with that. And they have a roadmap for that. But it is important that we move it forward. Monsieur Peart, and then we are going to. It's almost 11 o'clock.
It is trying to understand the contradiction between buildings being built that are way less than 20 stories at this time elsewhere, and the statement that has come from council rather large number of times, we can only get buildings built if we allow 20 stories. There's a contradiction there. And the reason for that contradiction starts to become clear when the developers start to tell you, well, I have to recoup my sunk costs. No, you don't have to sunk. We have other paths. Sunk costs are in the past. They have no economic rationale. Okay, Conrad, come
So-
back to me.
so just
But
because-
Councillor Peart, and then we are going to move on because we're going to
Because
adjourn
I'll-
after the next question.
We've been focusing largely on height. And when we're talking about towers that are set back laterally from the side lot lines, it changes the calculus. So all of the examples you're citing around Concordia, those are 10 stories, 11 stories, 12 stories.
On podium.
On a podium, but build to the full width of the lot. As soon as you narrow in to get the same floor area, you have to go up. So that area is just proportion, it's just reallocated differently on a site, and it results in height. And that's because we have towers. The towers are pulled back from the sides. And so the argument, the calculus that the property owners are making are not they manifest themselves in height, but it's about the conversion of land into buildable square foot area. And it translates into height because we have towers. If they were not towers, which is what is allowed today, built to the full width, then the 10 stories which are currently allowed are not being built.
With no setback between the
With
buildings.
no
we have
setbacks in between the
massive
buildings.
walls.
So in other words, what you're telling us is that as opposed to towers, the concept of having a 3-story podium along the whole length of St. Catherine, with maybe another 4 or 5 stories on top the whole length of St. Catherine, to make a total of 8, 9 stories, is a possibility in terms of density, but one that you in fact don't prefer less to the idea of a couple of towers.
So no, because we would not hit the required thresholds, nor would we, the types of units that it would deliver, if you go full width, like you do around the Concordia sector, means that once you're full wide, that immediately means you have a corridor running down the middle of the building. Once you have a corridor running down the middle of the building, that means the only options are units on the front or units on the back. You have units on the front or units on the back, everybody's got to have a window. Windows determine bedrooms. So you're going to have, nobody wants a 3-bedroom apartment that only faces one side. So that's why you want to have towers. Towers means you can have corners. Corners mean you can have windows on 2 sides of your unit. You can open up windows, you can have cross ventilation going in the units. But if you just limit yourself, and that's why it works perfectly around Concordia, because it's a high student population. You have small units, they're studio units. I went and I checked, and they are small, tiny units, stack, and it's like a hotel. You got windows in the front, you got windows in the back. That's not going to work. That's what we have right now. That's what's allowed right now. And we could have 7 stories from half of the building with the empty lot going westward, and we could have 10 stories going eastwards. That's what's allowed now. But what the conversion is it's called a floor area ratio of 12. So if we want to do that, we can go to 12 stories, not go to 20 stories, and still get the same floor area. But the type of units that would yield would not be attractive. They're not attractive now, and they're not likely to be attractive in the future. So the towers are a viable solution. What I said before earlier is that I am very suspect. I doubt that 4 towers make a lot of sense. I am of the opinion that fewer towers, which will necessarily be taller, are a better solution. A better solution for Atwater Library. A better solution for the occupants of the potential towers. Better solution all around, but that could come at a later date.
Thank you. Next
Very
question.
quickly, Dennis Bureau, 5,000 de Maisonneuve. I was curious about what Mr. D'Amico, Councillor D'Amico said suggested earlier about postponing the adoption of the special planning program and talking and sort of refining it by talking to the residents and developers, because on St. Catherine there's such a variety of ideas and options. And so it seemed to be, to him anyway, preliminary to pass the SBP, set the structure, the design. So my question is, what steps, if we follow that plan of postponing it, what steps would he suggest? What type of structure would we have in doing all that? And how long would it take? Would it take another 6 months, or would it take another 3 months? Because certainly nobody wants it another year.
So I think you're asking what the timeline is to delay?
No, I'm asking for what structure would he suggest to
I leave
to
that to
talk
Mr.
the
D'Amico to tell
developer?
you.
Of course. It's my pleasure to answer your question. So obviously, if you make any major changes to what you have now, you have to go back to a public consultation. So that would be a major change because you're now changing the 4 towers to 2 or 3.
Right.
And you're lowering the height on Dorchester. So that goes back to a public consultation. Once that public consultation is done, then we go back into the PPU. So it's, your
But first,
question
you
is
have
how...
to go out to public tender.
Yes.
Because you have to now award a contract to an outside consulting firm to manage this, because we don't have, the LeMay contract has been completed. So now we have to go back out to public tender to a new firm. Perhaps we start again, perhaps we don't.
I don't
perhaps
see
we
it
add on.
that way. I don't see
But
it
we
that
can't
way.
just, but we can't just award, it's public dollars. We obviously have to, so that is a step in Mr. D'Amico's plan.
Thank you.
The meeting is adjourned.